All right, everybody's here. Let's call our meeting to order. We're going to start our meeting this afternoon. We're in executive session. If we could all please move into the side room. Do you have a specific statement that needs to be made?
Yes. Pursuant to Florida statutes, I'm requesting a closed attorney-client executive session to discuss ongoing litigation in the matter of Roddenberry versus Wakulla County. Case number is noted in your agenda. The discussions in this session will be confined to settlement negotiations and/or strategy relating to litigation expenditures. In addition to the five of you, those who will be in this session are the County Administrator David Edwards, myself, Special Counsel Brian Duffy, Special Counsel Jason Taylor, and a certified court reporter. We expect the executive session to last approximately 1 hour, at which point we will return to the public meeting. Court reporter is not here yet.
There's a lady in the back room.
Oh, there's a court reporter in the back room?
Bathroom.
Oh, in the bathroom?
I think she's in the back. I think she's in the back room.
Well, I'll go check. Not in the bathroom, in the back room.
I'm looking at this.
I know she's back.
Either way, she's in the building. That's what I thought.
You're the one that said bathroom. Bathroom or
I said bathroom.
You said bathroom.
Again, you're...
Close the closed session. And we're going to resume the meeting at 5 o'clock. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. So do I need to say meeting back to order? It appears that Pastor Henry Jones is running late in traffic, but we don't want to delay people too long. So if you could please stand. Commissioner Mike Stewart will open our meeting in prayer.
Please stand and join me. Our Heavenly Father, again, we thank you for this opportunity to come and serve in this capacity as commissioners. Lord, I just ask that you grant us wisdom and strength, God, to make the decisions that would benefit our county, Lord, for the long haul. God, I just ask that you overlook our county, oversee us, God, and know those that can't be here that are sick and home, that, Lord, you just touch them. Be with our military, Lord, as they serve around the world. And we ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. You can please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If Pastor Jones joins us in the next short while, we'll acknowledge him when he arrives. First, it never hurts. One thing that will not hurt us. First thing on tonight's agenda is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add one brief announcement and also pull 2 items off the consent agenda, number 3 and number 5.
Okay. An announcement?
Please.
Any additional changes to the agenda?
I think on number 13, let me see that 1 second. I'd like to see number 13 pulled for discussion.
I think it is on the regular agenda, so we'll be discussing it at that time.
Okay.
Okay?
Motion to approve with the noted changes.
Wait.
Sorry, we have a couple over here.
Okay.
Number 12, we do not have all of the appointments in yet, so we're going to table that till the next meeting so that we can get the other appointments that are coming from outside entities.
Okay.
Also, item number 16, we'll need to amend that to include the C.W. Roberts base contract as well, when we talked about item number 16.
Okay. Any additional changes? Then we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yep. Excuse me.
We're
We're going to table number 5 as well on the consent agenda. We're going to table
tabling number 5?
Yes.
So we don't need to pull the item?
Next meeting or for subsequent meeting.
Is that okay with you, Commissioner Arts? We table it? Okay. So,
Sorry about that.
So amended? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Okay. Sorry. We're going to have an announcement this evening. First up this evening is Edward Marty Kring with the Big Bend Homeless Coalition. Ready?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Edward Marty Kring. I'm with the Big Bend Homeless Coalition based out of Tallahassee, Florida, and we serve the Big Bend area. For the past 25 years, we've been serving the Big Bend area and helping our neighbors and friends that are experiencing homelessness transition out of homelessness and into stable and quality living. In 2005, we opened our transitional housing program, which is a 6-month program that helps children and their families as well as some adults transition out of homelessness. In the past 5 years, we've helped over 1,000 individuals, including 400 children, and their experience of homelessness. And, excuse me, in 2006, we opened up Home Plate, which is a program for chronically homeless and disabled individuals. And in 2011, last year, we opened up Home Front, which is a 50 single-unit apartment complex for veterans that were homeless. And so we are doing a lot of work to help our friends and our neighbors end homelessness. And April 27th, we will be celebrating 25 years of service and asking our community to join us in doing so at Klima Plaza in downtown Tallahassee. And we'll be having a paid forward fish fry because it's during National Pay It Forward Week. I'm not sure if anyone has seen the movie Pay It Forward, but that's the theme there. And again, it's Friday, April 27th from 5 to 9 p.m. And we're going to have food by the Signyard Seafood Restaurant, live music out there. And so I hope that all of you here can join us. And I'd like to thank the commissioners for passing the proclamation of Pay It Forward Day on April 27th.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Presentation by Mr. Ron Pisacki, Dr. Todd Kincaid, and Dr. Bob Knight.
Commissioners, I really appreciate the opportunity to come before you. I'm chairman of the Hydrogeology Consortium and our unit, the Wakulla Springs Alliance. And we're fortunate to have a board meeting today, and Dr. Todd Kincaid was in from Nevada, and Dr. Bob Knight was over from Gainesville. And so all three of us, along with Jim Stevenson, went to the Northwest Water Management District today. And I'll let Todd and Bob tell you the highlights of that meeting. Thank you very much. Also, we handed out a paper that Todd sent out at about midnight last night that you all have. Will contain a lot of the information that he'll discuss in background. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity just to come and give you an update. I'm not going to have a big presentation like I did last time. I don't think, in essence, I'm not really going to say anything different than I did last time. I just wanted to, number one, kind of reiterate a strong belief that I have that there is a water that water quantity is an issue that I think you should be considering in terms of the sustainability of clear water discharge to Wakulla Springs. As Ron said, we met with the Northwest Florida Water Management District today, and at that meeting I made the presentation that I provided to you in the letter that I believe you have in front of you, and that's that in essence the Water Management District is looking at the availability of groundwater in this region, and in their opinion there is no water issue. And so I have, we're at absolute opposite ends of the spectrum here. And I think that consumptive use is an issue, and it is impacting Wakulla Springs. And the reason that we're at opposite ends of the spectrum is the focus of the letter that I sent to you. And there are two issues that I think people should be made aware of. This is a reiteration of the material I presented last time, and that's that, number one, the water that comes out at Wakulla Springs is a combination of groundwater and surface water. And I'm sure all of you are familiar with the sinking streams like Lost Creek, Fisher Creek, Black Creek. You know that water just terminates in a sinkhole, swirls around. I'm sure some of you have seen the swirls. And that water goes underground and travels very rapidly to Wakulla Springs. In essence, that's surface water. It doesn't spend very much time underwater. It goes into a pipe that discharges out at Wakulla Springs. The other component is the groundwater. Is when you think about riding in the glass bottom boat tours, if you can think about that, it's been a long time, that has traditionally been in the dry periods of the year when the discharge at Wakulla Springs is low. In hydrogeology, we tend to call that the base flow condition. That's the groundwater component that's coming out. The case that I made to Northwest Florida Water Management District is that their assessments of groundwater supply and availability should be based solely on the base flow condition at Wakulla Springs and not, in fact, the average or the maximum river discharge conditions that they currently are looking at. So in essence, when they look at water quantity availability, they're looking at Wakulla River and they're saying, look, there's plenty of water in Wakulla River, and the collective consumptive use is a small percentage of that water. And the case that I made is that comparison is apples to oranges. That's not one-to-one. They need to be looking at just the base flow condition. And the second point that I made, and is again a reiteration, is that Wakulla and Spring Creek are effectively one unit. They are two discharge locations from the same conduit pipe system that collects water, from both the surface water streams and the groundwater and delivers it to springs. And right now, one of the things that the management district looks at is that in these times of drought, the Wakulla River is actually gaining in flow. So if we look at the data that's being collected, which is only on the Wakulla River, not on Spring Creek, you can see that as we come into a dry period, the discharge at Wakulla River goes up, and they look at that as evidence of a groundwater surplus, not as indication for alarm. Where in fact the only reason that the Wakulla River gains in discharge during that time period is that Spring Creek is reversing, has shut down. And so the impacts that I believe are relevant to you are, number one, Spring Creek is reversing. That means that the salinity in the Spring Creek estuary goes up to sea level or to seawater conditions. You have severe ecological impacts associated with that. And then you also have an impact to Wakulla Springs, wherein when Spring Creek reverses, that lower quality water, that lower clarity water, changes direction and discharges at Wakulla, in essence shutting down the normal clear water period of discharge. So you lose the freshwater conditions at Spring Creek, you lose your clear water conditions in the Wakulla River. And that was the case that I made to Northwest Florida Water Management District. Their response in general was that they thought that the data was interesting, but that there was not enough data to be convincing to them. So I think I disagree with that. We're going to be working in terms of the Wakulla Springs Alliance to make a better presentation of our data, but in essence, I see this as an issue that's going to continue to be pressing and something that I feel important that you should be considering.
Can I ask him a question?
Yeah.
What is your solution? What if everything is as you say, but what are you actually saying that we need to do?
What I'm saying, in essence, is that in the management district, actually, threw out as a possibility, is that we have to be collectively looking at the total consumptive use, and we have to be looking at ways to cap or to at least be considerate of how much water is being permitted for extraction in the combined Wakulla Spring Creek spring sheds. And that doesn't have anything to do with who's using it or for what purpose. It's just talking about the total extraction. The Wakulla Spring Creek spring shed, you have the unfortunate situation of being reliant not only on what is done here in Florida, which would be the purvey of the management district, but also what happens in South Georgia. So the more agricultural pumping that takes place in South Georgia, the less water is available to travel down here. And then one more point is that the other thing I recommend to be considered and is included in that letter is that when you have extractive use, it should give very strong consideration to return. That is in essence what the city of Tallahassee is doing with the spray field, and that kind of activity is critical to maintaining a sustainable water balance for Wakulla Springs. If you're taking the water out, if you can clean it and put it back in, that is a strong benefit.
Who are the ones taking it out in Wakulla, in that spring shed? Who are the people taking the water out in that spring shed?
the consumptive, the biggest user in Florida within the spring shed is the city of Tallahassee. But that includes all wells that are within, essentially, we don't know, we don't have like a very solid line on the map, but the one that you have in front of you that you guys are working with is a pretty good approximation, I think. It's basically all wells that fall within that spring shed. So the biggest users are City of Tallahassee and then agricultural extraction in South Georgia. So the spring shed boundary that I'm talking about is not in the document that I sent to you. It's in I believe the one that you're, as part of your septic system discussion.
With all due respect, then basically, Wakulla is going to have very little to do with the extraction of water that would affect the springs.
North of us.
That's correct. Yeah, but I think that anything you can do is in terms of taking a position or requesting information or requesting the Northwest Florida Water Management District to assert and take action on a minimum flow and level or a reservation for Wakulla Springs would be very beneficial. So it's definitely not actions that you have control of, but I think if you don't take some sort of action, at least in terms of raising this issue and raising this concern with the management district, then you're gonna have to deal with whatever comes your way. So as these opportunities present themselves, right now the management district is, as you I'm sure know, the management districts are legislatively mandated to assign minimum flows and levels. They haven't done that for Wakulla. The longer they wait, the lower that number is going to go, I guarantee it, and the less is going to be available. So we're taking, as a Wakulla Springs Alliance, the purpose of our meeting was to go and formally assert a position that is asking them to move forward more rapidly with the designation of a minimum flow and level for Wakulla. And anything that you can do to foster that, I think, would be beneficial.
I totally agree with you. I just want to put the entire burden of providing water and water safety for Wakulla Springs on the people of Wakulla in that district, because I think we are such a small minor part of that extraction, because your farms in South Georgia, irrigation and all of that is where we're losing the water, maybe Tallahassee. But I don't think the people of Wakulla, north of that of the springs, are impacting the water flow in the springs, but very tiny amount.
And it's not my intention to disagree with that. It's only my intention to say that I think that you should try to take a stance with the management district to raise the issue and raise the concern. The Wakulla Springs Alliance is certainly not picking only on, we're not only here talking to you, we'll also be talking to Leon County, City of Tallahassee, and to the extent possible, although we're told that the situation is hopeless, when the opportunity presents, we will present this case to Georgia as well.
Well, I just wanted to remind everyone, we passed a resolution which we sent to the Northwest Florida Water Management District and also to the Georgia Water Council, encouraging fewer permits and for consumptive withdrawals, more emphasis on conservation and reuse, and we also put in about the minimum flows and levels. But clearly, if you just met with them, our resolution had no impact.
I was about to say that we met with Doug Barr. He is not going to be the leader of the district very much longer, but he did not appear to have knowledge of your resolution. Because the reason I say that is because he said we asked him if it would be beneficial to have the counties take a stance and take a position and ask, and he said yes, he thought that would be beneficial. So
I'm going to ask our county attorney to look and see if there's any legal action we could start taking regarding some of that.
Ms. Lawrence, I disagree with you on legal action. you know.
That's what it took to get the spray field done.
Yeah, but I'm not willing to sue the state of Georgia, and that's where our shortage is going to come from.
Bob?
I got a couple,
Nope.
real quick, just, I don't know if you'll call them technical questions or not. You mentioned that Lost Creek and Black Creek are straight conduits. How does the tannic get removed from Black Creek, because it's black, because it's tannic?
Right.
Obviously, it gets filtered somewhere, right?
No, actually it doesn't. It gets diluted. So if you look at the magnitude of the water going down at Black Creek and you compare it to the discharge at Wakulla, it's fairly small. So every one of those creeks contribute to the water clarity condition at Wakulla Springs. So it's not as black at Wakulla when it comes out as it is at Black Creek, because the water at Ames Sink is considerably clearer.
So it's diluted, basically.
It's diluted, yeah.
Just another personal curiosity question. The Wakulla River, it flows to the sea because of topography, because it has a bigger hydraulic gradient behind it, pushing the water out, or is it strictly because of the topography of the county?
Well, there's a hydraulic gradient that flows water down river to the sea. The gradient there is about 4 feet on average. So the average elevation is about 4 feet, and obviously the average elevation at the sea is 0, so you got an average of 4. Now, if you look at tidal flux, that gradient drops to a foot or less, every day, and which is why you see such a strong tidal signal not only at the Wakulla River but also in groundwater wells throughout Wakulla County.
I guess my question is there a head pressure behind it coming from the Florida aquifer? Of course, it's higher as you go further north.
That's exactly right, and that's
offset it.
And that's the issue that I'm presenting in the paper and the letter, is that the issue that I believe we're seeing, the reason that Spring Creek reverses is that head pressure is declining. The head pressure declines for 2 reasons. One is increasing sea level. We know that sea level has been increasing at a very small rate, but it's been increasing since at least the 50s in the Gulf of Mexico. And then the second is extraction on the upgradient side. So the more you pump out, the lower the head pressure in the north, and the higher sea level rises, the higher the head pressure in the south, so it flattens the gradient.
Was Bob going to say something?
Do we have any more time?
A couple minutes.
Okay. My name's Bob Knight. I'm the president of Wetland Solutions. This is the company that was hired by DEP to continue the working group in 2010 and develop a preliminary restoration plan for Wakulla Springs. So it was through that activity that I became knowledgeable about these issues and worked with Todd and other hydrogeologists in the area and agree with what he's saying in terms of the effects we've seen at Wakulla Springs in terms of increasing dark water days. There's an increasing frequency of those days, not during these really dry years, but during the wetter years, like in 2010, there was 100%, of the days where you could not take the glass bottom boats. What I was really interested in as an environmental scientist was the impacts on the ecology of the system. And I am also the director of the Florida Springs Institute, a nonprofit organization that's interested in just springs restoration statewide. And so that's my particular interest, and the reason I was here today with the Wakulla Alliance is to talk about those issues to the Water Management District. The ecology of the system changes radically when you have the dark water, the tannic water. We have data from that, from Wakulla Springs that we collected in 2009, where we actually had a period of clear water and dark water. The productivity of the system goes down dramatically when the water's dark because the sunlight is attenuated before it can get down to the plant level. When you have lower productivity, you have less food for the insects and in turn the fish and other consumers that are living in the system all the way up to the birds. It really changes the ecology of the system. You start selecting for different plants and algae and things like that. So there's a dramatic effect of dark water. If Wakulla Springs becomes a dark water spring, it's going to be a very different spring from the one that any of us remember in the past. And it's more likely to do that if this is a permanent condition due to groundwater withdrawals. Secondly, it's obviously a lot less attractive as an economic engine for the people that like to utilize Wakulla Springs and like to swim there. And so it's something that affects you, and it's there's none of us that can say we're not part of the issues here, because wherever we pump water in North Florida, we're affecting other parts of the state. They may be down the road, they may be as much as 100 miles away. We have evidence of that over where I live in Florida and in Central Florida, where the city and county governments have had to come together to try to resist the big pumping centers like Jacksonville and the Northeast Florida and South Georgia, once again areas that are pulling down the spring shed for the whole Swanee River system. 200 some springs in that system are being affected by declining flows due to pumping outside of the water management district. So I would just echo what Todd said in terms of this is something that affects you. It's something that would be good for you to be concerned about, and just to learn more about. We certainly never have enough information to be certain of anything, but we're certain that pumping is affecting flows at Wakulla Springs. We just don't know exactly how much pumping is affecting, what's the best way to deal with that right now. So that's all I wanted to say. If you have any other questions.
I'd have a question for both Bob and Todd before they leave, because I understand they aren't going to be staying for the rest of the meeting. And they're the experts on Wakulla Springs. So one of the things we're going to be talking about later tonight is reducing the area in which we require nitrogen reducing on-site systems, both for new construction and for repairs. Currently it's countywide, and the proposal is to reduce it to just the Springs Protection Zone and within 150 feet of swalettes and karst features and rivers, and that's pretty much it. So I would like your opinions in terms of protecting Wakulla Springs over the long run, given that we're seeing some of these reversals northward and so forth. What you
If they
what
want
you
to,
would
these would
recommend.
be personal opinions, I assume. I don't think they're here to...
No, right, but they're experts. So,
I've worked for 30 years with wastewater disposal and treatment, and including septic tanks and other types of wastewater systems, but primarily wetland systems. So I have a little knowledge about that, but I don't have the specifics. But what I would suggest is that you have probably a lot of interest in protecting not only Wakulla Springs, but Springs Creek and the estuarine system there. And septic tanks, in terms of water quality effects in the groundwater, are the worst effects are in areas that are poorly, that are not confined, that are poorly confined and have high drainage, because the nitrogen is not assimilated in those areas and actually makes it into the groundwater. Whether or not those areas are south of the spring or north of the spring, they're going to cause water quality effects if the septic tanks are at high densities in those areas. And I've indicated before, if the septic tanks are in low densities on large parcels of land, 5 acres and above is pretty much my rule of thumb. I don't think that there's much of a problem. Also, if they're on the confined areas, the ground is saturated with water. The septic tank's more likely to fail from an overland flow point of view, but in terms of nitrogen removal, they actually do more. They're more effective in those areas. The nitrogen doesn't get to the groundwater as rapidly, unless they're right near a swalette. So I would say that it might be acceptable to exclude the part of the county that's confined to the western part of the county, but the areas around the swalettes and the whole Woodville Karst Plain area, I would suggest really needs to be protected from high densities of septic tanks or use higher nitrogen removal systems.
okay, thank you.
I would basically reiterate what Bob said. I'm not an expert. I wish I was. I wish I could give you a number that would say yes or no. But the best I can say is essentially the same thing he did. If you're looking to prioritize the unconfined area for which the spring shed delineation is, we're not certain of that. There's pretty big error bars on the actual position of that line on your map. The line separating the confined from unconfined conditions is pretty agreed on and pretty supported by lots of data. So we can tell you where that is, and I think that's a pretty hard line. And when you're in the unconfined area, it's much more of a problem than when you're in the confined area. And then secondly, I would obviously the red line, that delineates the spring shed boundaries does there is work and data and science behind it. I'm just saying that it's not a hard line on the map. So if you're looking at prioritization, the unconfined, then within the red line, and then as we discussed, from my perspective, priority-wise, north of Wakulla is a higher priority, but realize that as Spring Creek reverses, the water in the south is flowing north to Wakulla. So if you're exclusively concerned with Wakulla, north is higher priority than south, but ultimately the water in the south comes up there as well, especially now that Spring Creek is undergoing these reversals. And as Bob said, if it's in the unconfined area, it's flowing very rapidly to one of these two spring systems. So if it's not flowing to Wakulla, then it's flowing rapidly to Spring Creek.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just one minute less. Final comments coming out of Doug Barr, and he was very candid because he said he's got an unexpected short notice to retire, so I think he's being forced on. Since he was not aware of your resolution, that means his board was not aware of it either. So he encouraged us to come and make a presentation to the board of directors for the Water Management District. And I think there's 16 governor-appointed representatives on that board. So we'll plan on doing that. I would also recommend, if you're going to make sure your resolution gets seen, is for the board to send to their board, chairman of the board, a copy of the resolution. That way you'll make sure that at least their board does get it.
Since you're going to be making a presentation to them, could we also have you take copies to hand out to them because it's consistent with your talk?
We took them today, so Doug was given the copy of the letters. Also, he indicated that the representative from our region, Tallahassee and Wakulla County, has been removed. He's been transferred somewhere. And so the governor will have to appoint somebody new. So this will be a good opportunity for the board to be thinking about who would you like to see on there, and get somebody that we know is supportive of our interest onto that particular board. So, again, thank you for the time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Arts, you have an announcement regarding wildflowers?
Well, I'll make my announcement, then I'm going to show some pictures. The announcement is on Thursday. We're having an Energy Committee meeting. This is the 19th at 10 a.m. That's a public meeting. And I often have Jerry asking me if there are any flowers on 98. So I thought could we just do full screen? Can you do that? So I brought along some pictures of wildflowers that were taken by Tamara Burns and Brandy Gilbert over a couple-week period. And just if people aren't aware, just so you know, there are two things happening along 98 between 319 and the Woodville Highway. The DOT is mowing less frequency to give us the plants that are there chance to go to seed. And then we also planted some wildflower seeds in the area between 319 and Spring Creek Highway last fall. So anyway, these are just a few pictures. Here, she says.
Oh, you're waiting on.
There we go. Okay, it's a little hard to see. These are near the Best Western. That's what's on the left, our wildflower sign, and you can see Coreopsis. This is the area right in front of the high school, and we're kind of disappointed that the seeds we sowed there haven't popped up yet, but the seeds we planted include summer bloomers and fall bloomers, so we'll see. The one you saw, this is a close-up of the Gaillardia. This shows a good view of the safety strip, which we enlarged from 6 feet to 12 feet, so there's plenty of room for disabled vehicles to pull over, and you can see the difference that it makes in terms of the wildflowers. If you don't mow, you get flowers. And these are Coreopsis as well. So some of the areas are really sandy and they don't look like they'd be very hospitable, but wildflowers will grow. This is coral bean. This is Coreopsis basalis, which is one of the ones we sowed seeds for, so I'm pretty sure that's one we planted. This is Coreopsis lanceolata, which known as lance leaf tick seed. And these are some of the nicest pictures. This is near Tobacco Sink Road, which is heading toward Spring Creek Highway, you know where that is. But this is a really nice stand of Coreopsis. I mean, that's beautiful. And this is a close-up of it with the red clover, and there's some spiderwort in there. It's mostly Coreopsis. But it takes a while to build, but I just wanted you to know, Jerry, there are flowers down there.
You get a picture of Jerry's lift station. You got flowers down there.
We planted some, and actually they're coming up next to the Moore lift station.
The good thing about your flowers there, Ms. Arts, is they're not having to mow as far across, so it saves us money on mowing.
Good.
All right, thank you. Is that both your
That was
announcements? Thank you, Commissioner Arts. We'll come back to citizens to be heard at 6:30. If you're interested in speaking on any agenda item or at citizens to be heard, please make sure that you fill out a card and turn it in to Jessica and Katie over here. We already voted on the consent agenda. We did that a little bit out of order earlier tonight, so we've approved everything.
No, we did.
No, you didn't.
Did we?
No, we did.
Oh, we did? Okay.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Sorry.
Minus item
We
3.
already changed it on.
Yeah, we would table item 5 tabled. Item 3 to be pulled. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Item number 3, Commissioner Arts, you pulled it?
Yes, I did, because I am going to be out of town on May 10th. And I know that's a regular workshop date, but I would really like to attend this workshop, and I was wondering if the board was amenable to maybe rescheduling. Melissa, did you have a chance to check with John about a different date?
I did. He's available on the 17th, but not on the 24th.
Okay, if we want to stay with a Thursday, could we push it back one day?
The 17th is going to be a Tourism Development Council roundtable. Just as a note.
What time?
6 o'clock. It's going to be taking place not in this building, they're planning to do it in the St. Mark's National Wildlife.
So you can't do it on the Thursday.
I can't do it on 10th.
We've already scheduled this.
It's our regular second.
It's our regular workshop night.
Which is second Thursday, basically, the month. Okay.
The Thursday following the first Monday.
Can they do it the following month? Is it a pressing issue?
We're gonna also piggyback onto this workshop as well with a Public Works workshop that we canceled at the last meeting.
What about the 3rd, Lynn? That first Thursday?
I can't do that one, I'm sorry. We could do another day of the week. Thursday the 17th would be good for me and good for John Sewell. That just pushes it back a week. I don't
Not
have
have
to
one on the
December.
10th, right?
Correct.
If possible, I'd like to at least keep it to one.
Well, I agree. And David, you were going to check on some. You were going to check, is the 17th okay for the Public Works one?
I think so.
I'm not in town.
You're not in town?
If it's the third Thursday, I have a standing meeting.
We just wouldn't have Heather here, but Cleve, you don't have a problem with that, do you? Okay. Well, he will be here in case, but anyway, no, we don't have a problem.
He can fill in for the...
He can fill in for Heather.
Okay.
Make as much, but
Well, I would really appreciate it. It sounds like we could reschedule both of them for the 17th if this board is willing. So I would like to make a motion that we approve scheduling a workshop on Thursday, May 17th regarding the Wakulla County Bicycle and Pedestrian Facilities Master Plan, recommendations from the February 16th Public Workshop.
And reschedule the Public Works 5-year plan workshop also.
Well, that's not this item, but,
It would have to be rescheduled, so it'd have to...
okay, and thank you.
Again, I want to reiterate, it may be tricky for some of our citizens who may try and do both because the Tourist Development Council will be meeting at the same time in St. Mark's, but there won't be a conflict with the space here. So I think it should work.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving off the consent agenda, moving into our regular agenda of the evening. Our first item is going to be item number 10, request board approval for the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office to donate $3,000 from the Wakulla County Drug Trust Fund for Project Graduation 2012. Sheriff Johnny Crum.
I move that we approve the WCSO to donate $3,000 from the drug fund to Project Graduation 2012 in support of community crime prevention programs.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Thank you. Hearing no further discussion, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously. Thank you, Sheriff Crum. Best speech tonight.
But just...
Not picking, I'm sorry.
No, Donnie, if you want to take time so you can educate the public,
Yeah.
I mean, this is a wonderful thing Donnie and his crew has put together this year. This is really a neat opportunity for the seniors.
For years we've had Project Graduation, but it's kind of dwindled down from year to year for lack of interest or whatever. We've gone to Tallahassee and had fun station days or whatever, and never really accomplished what its purpose is for. So this year we asked Wakulla Springs if we could have it at their facility, and they've okayed it. We're going to have Project Graduation Wakulla Springs on May 31 from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 2 o'clock in the morning. And during that time, when we polled the seniors are what they wanted. They wanted, believe it or not, a bonfire and karaoke on the beach. So we did the best we could. We had a bonfire at Wakulla Springs and karaoke. And so there'll be a lot of games. They'll have unlimited amounts of snacks. We'll feed them a nice dinner at 8 o'clock. They will have the bonfire with the help of the fire department. There will be cornhole games, the rock wall, riverboat rides. About it, the night we feel, and we're still filling up things as we can with people to have them, to keep them busy the entire night. They'll check in, they'll go in one way, they'll be given a bracelet and a ticket, and we hope to every hour draw for a prize, hopefully something in the area that would further their college education. And we want it to be a laptop or an iPad, something of that nature, every hour. And as our budget is about $20,000, and we're asking for donations now. And even with hard times, the donations are coming in because I think it's something we can grow and even be better and better. Whoever the new sheriff is, I think it can grow and really be something worthwhile. We'll have 2 photographers there that take pictures of the students along with a video. We'll make a video of the game of the grad night so they can show it to the juniors next year with their seniors, and hopefully they will participate. There's over 270 seniors now, so if we can get 150, 200 to come, that would be a tremendous success. And we'll have a lot of chaperones, and once they leave, they can't come back. And so we'll continue to improve and continue to add things that they can do. We actually have some of the seniors on our board that are planning. The firemen are going to help us, and so we need all the help we can get from the public safety officers, and everyone's agreed. And we're having a lot of participation as far as volunteers. And so if you can donate any money, we'd appreciate it. And thank you so much for allowing us.
And if a business has an item they think a senior might like as a door prize, they can donate any a specific item as a door prize also.
We'll not turn anything away. We'll give it away. We'll give it. Even the cornhole game, we made them, and whoever wins that, they will take the games home with them. And so we'll build them again next year, hopefully. And so I think it's going to be a tremendous event, something that we can really make better from year to year.
I'm glad you're having it in our county.
Yes, ma'am. That was the whole object of trying to find a venue to have it in, and it's a big deal for the park to give us they can't rent any rooms that night. They can't sell any meals that night. It's exclusive for Wakulla High.
When I did it, when I graduated Wakulla, we did it at the Sopchoppy City Park, so it has been around. Probably wasn't as much fun back then.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun. A lot of fun, and we'll be getting pledges the 31st to not drink on June the 1st, so that on graduation night they'll go home and be safe. That's the object of it, is to get them to sign a pledge that they won't drink. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we voted on the item. It is already passed. Moving on to general business item number 11, request board acceptance of the status report from Meridian Community Services Group regarding State Housing Initiatives Partnership, Section 8 housing programs. Meridian, I believe, is going to address this issue.
Good evening, Commissioner Brock, fellow commissioners. I did want to just give you a general and brief update as to where we are with the housing programs, more particularly the Section 8 and the State Housing Initiatives Partnership Program. As you know, it's been about a year ago, right at a year ago, when Meridian did take over these particular programs. We did encounter a number of issues, as we do know the state of affairs as it relates to the housing. So it took us a tad bit of time to accumulate information, gather data, accumulate the filing, so on and so forth, before we can ascertain the magnitude of the problem. I will tell you there were some problems. There still are some problems that we are working with the funding agencies to resolve, but we are addressing each one of those in a positive manner, and we have received a lot of positive feedback from HUD as well as the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. If you look in your packet of information, you should have a summary of where we are. It's labeled Wakulla County's Housing Department Annual Report. Under the Section 8 program, the county receives a little over $1 million a year to address families matriculating through their housing Section 8 program. You're averaging about $52,000 a month in Section 8, what they call housing assistance payments. Now, according to HUD, you're supposed to be utilizing maybe 250 vouchers. Right now, the county is right at 119 vouchers. HUD refers to that as underutilization. Why is that the case? That's because the county is spending more on one voucher as opposed to spreading the wealth across many other vouchers. So we are affirmatively working with HUD to get that utilization rate up. As you can see, that was the CMAP indicator number 13. CMAP is the acronym for the Section 8 Management Assessment Program, which is how HUD evaluates each housing authority each year. If you turn to page 2 of the report there, you can see the number of challenges. I won't go through all of those, but I do want to highlight there were components of the Section 8 program that the county was not authorized to administer. So what Meridian did, we were able to work out and address these issues with the Tallahassee Housing Authority in order to absorb those vouchers that were not specific to or not allowed under Wakulla County's Section 8 program. So we were able to do that. As it relates to the filing system, we developed a comprehensive filing system. That way, when HUD comes down, or the Inspector General, they're able to go to the files and find the information that's necessary in order for them to confirm what they need to confirm. Payment standards. The payment standards were off, and we have corrected many of them, and we are still in the process of correcting those for fiscal year 2011 and 2012. Meridian conducted a utility study. You know, some families do receive assistance through the Section 8 program, in which to defer some of the cost in their utilities. We recertified everybody. We've either done a full recertification or we've done an interim certification. And as each Section 8 tenant knows, they are supposed to report any type of discrepancies, any change in household composition, any variance in income levels. They are to report those to our office. And so we have cracked down. So the county may have been receiving a number of calls. You may have received calls from Section 8 folks or SHIP folks. That's because we are actively cracking down on some of the misuse of program activity. So we want to make sure that we're in compliance with all of the funders and the regulations established by HUD or the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. More importantly, the last one that I will address here is the waiting list. You know, we receive a wealth of calls on the waiting list, and I will tell you that waiting list is closed. Why? Because the county had about 200 people on the waiting list. That's a lot for a small county such as Wakulla County. So what we did over the past couple months, we went through the purging process. The county is supposed to do that every 2 to 3 years, and it has not been done since 2008. So we just completed that process as of March 19th. We're evaluating those, and we should have an established waiting list and by May 1st. And I will tell you, those that do not respond to the waiting list, according to the regulations, they come off. And the county needs that. That's called a purging process. That condenses your waiting list, and we're able to serve more people. Right now, the county does have a small capacity to serve additional folks. But before we reach out to serve additional people, I want to make sure that all is well with the existing tenants that are participating in the Section 8 program. So within the next month and a half, we should be able to serve at least 2, 3, 4, 5 more people under the Section 8 program, and that also addresses one of the CMAP concerns and gets that utilization rate up. On to the SHIP program, as you should be aware, there were some issues, a number of issues with how the SHIP program was being used, more importantly the rents. Now, under the SHIP statutes, the county was not supposed to be using funds to pay rents on a continual basis. In a number of cases, that did happen. So what I've been doing is working closely with the Florida Housing Finance Corporation, and they've been working closely with us to try to deflect some of the criticism. So, I used to work for Florida Housing, used to be the director of housing there, so I'm speaking with them so that the county won't be liable for some of the funding that they did put out. They've been amenable to listening, and so I will have a report as to where we are with the use of SHIP dollars for past rent payments that was undertaken by the housing staff in the past. Now, also, we've worked on a simultaneous course to continue using SHIP funds. At one point, the corporation had a stall. They did not want us to continue until we could resolve some of the issues that were apparent with the program. Well, they've lifted that, and now that's how we were able to put out the $549,000 in SHIP funds. We advertised that on April the 5th. So those that are in the market to purchase a new home for down payment and closing cost assistance, or those that are in need of repair, owner-occupied housing, they can apply under this cycle that does close on May 11th. Applications can only be submitted between May 7th and May 11th. Why is that the case? That's because the notice of funding availability has to be on the street at least 30 days before the first application can come in, and that's a statutory requirement there. That's a quick update on the SHIP program. As far as potential funding, we do plan to reapply for the Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program. The Department of Economic Opportunity has not put out their timeline for submission of those applications. We think it's going to be late summer, early fall before they do open that application cycle. And I'll entertain any questions that you may have.
How many of those, the latter part you talked about, the full-time renters or whatever how many of those do we have that's hanging on that?
As far as the Section 8 tenants or the tenant payments that were made?
Wherever you were referring to there at the end, that
The SHIP.
the SHIP.
The SHIP program?
Yeah.
As it relates to the payments made on behalf of tenants under the SHIP program, I think we had about 70 to 75 that participated in that activity.
But maybe that's
not your question, Commissioner.
No, the end of the conversation there, the last one you talked about where we were paying, we shouldn't have been paying, or we shouldn't be paying right now?
Yes.
How many of those exist?
There's about 70 to 75, and they were varying amounts, depending on there were multiple month payments made on behalf, 3 to 4 months continual payments made on behalf. Now, the issue with that is that the board in 2010 did approve a resolution authorizing a revision to the LHAP, to the SHIP. Well, what didn't happen, that did not get farmed up to the state for approval. So the housing staff at that time operated under that approved strategy, and Florida Housing was never aware of that strategy that was submitted. So it was never reviewed and never approved by Florida Housing. Thus the issue.
How do we fix it going forward?
We fixed that issue. Well, right now we're trying to get a retroactive approval. It's not that rents are not eligible under SHIP. It's continual payments that are not eligible under SHIP. You cannot make continual payments under the SHIP statute. But what I'm trying to do with Florida Housing is work with them to accept the bulk of those payments that have already been made to decrease the county's exposure to any potential payback probabilities.
Because it could be, Commissioners, that was actually one award and it was just doled out over a series of months.
So we're looking at a number of ways that, we could get Florida Housing to agree to. And so right now, I don't think this is their top priority, but we are proactively working to resolve the issue.
One more question.
Okay.
You talked about the average being from HUD is $312 a month, but our average that we're paying is $595 a month. Is that because we got some I don't want to call them the wrong thing out here, just renting
well, that's because
to people for too much?
That's because that's one issue. So what we're going to have to do, we need to undertake a rent reasonableness study to make sure that the rents that are being charged by landlords are reasonable in this current market. Now, we'll tell you that you're in the market with Jefferson County and Leon County, so HUD numbers could be skewing it. So what we're going to have to look into is conducting some type of study to determine what is a reasonable rate for a one-bedroom, a two-bedroom, a three-bedroom.
I've heard of people paying $1,100 and $1,200 a month for a single-wide trailer.
That is correct. And the way that HUD based their numbers, like I said, they based their numbers, you're looking at an average of about $312 a month. So they're considering us over-subsidizing. The second part of that, it could be the design of the program. You have a lot of tenants that may not be employed, or at least they're saying they're not employed, but we have a way of cross-verifying right now through HUD's Enterprise Income Verification System. So that's why we're cracking down. What you will see over the next couple months, you're probably going to see a decrease in actual housing assistance payments because people have started to work. We're soliciting that income documentation and making sure that they're keeping on top of their recertification information.
Do you have a criteria, let's just say you got a single mother with three children. Does she get any priority over a family with 3 children?
Commissioner, the issue with that's a good question. The issue with that is that the county already has a pre-established waiting list. And so in order to even provide, that's not one of HUD's preferences. HUD has about 5 preferences per the law that we can use in order to establish, a waiting list. The county has several folks on that waiting list already. I think you may have a problem. We can't just scratch the waiting list right now.
Let's say we didn't have a waiting list today, or we could make a policy following the waiting list that the mother with 3 children by herself would have priority.
After we consider the pre-established preferences by HUD, I believe the county can also identify some local preferences, and that would have to be outlined in the administrative plan approved by HUD.
What procedure do you have when you have a Section 8 who basically destroys a property?
That's a violation of the program. And so we have the ability, or the county has the ability, to terminate their assistance.
Who pays for that?
Who pays for
the destruction?
Well, that's a good question. There will have to be action taken against that, that tenant. HUD does not pay for that.
Any further questions? Is there a motion to approve the report or to accept the report?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much. Any citizens to be heard, Jessica, on this issue? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
It passed unanimously. Thank you for your report. We appreciate all your hard work. Item 12 has been tabled, so we're going to move on to item 13, which is to request board approval to schedule and advertise a public hearing to consider amendments to policy 1.3.1 and policy 1.3.6 of the infrastructure element of the comp plan pertaining to Wakulla Springs nitrogen reduction standards.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to direct staff to schedule and advertise public hearings to consider transmittal text amendment to the infrastructure element of the comp plan, incorporate the board directed amendments with the changes as follows: that modifications and repairs within the zone we're designated to be unlimited, something we talked about at discussion items, and that the requirement for performance base would be limited to properties that are less than 5 acres. which is something we also talked about. Right now, it's no matter what size piece of property you have, we had talked, Mike, you remember? Mm-hmm. So those are the two changes I'd like to add.
Can you clarify the first one? I didn't get that.
Clarify that.
The first one you
In the
said.
existing language, its proposed language, it says repairs or modifications are limited to the $1,500. I've suggested that repairs or modifications not be limited to any monetary amount.
So that any repair or modification within the protection zone
Correct.
would be upgraded to...
No.
No.
Would be allowed. You could take your existing septic tank and repair or modify it as much as you want, just like you were outside the zone. And this is something I talked about at discussion item.
Can I get one more clarification quick? There's language in here that has been discussed with the board in the past about if there's less than 24 inches between the bottom of the tank and the aquifer, the water table. That sort of impacts on your repairs, and I don't know how you want to handle that. That was a specific thing that's called that.
Yeah, I understand. Now, that has nothing to do, of course, with bringing it up to performance-based standards. I think that's Tad maybe could answer a little better if he's here, that I had to leave.
But did you want to retain that? That's in
Yes,
there.
yes. I think that's a health issue. It has nothing to do with nitrogen reducing.
I'll second the motion for those changes, but I want to talk about it here.
Okay. Would you like to hear from the citizens first, or would you like to talk before we hear from citizens?
I don't care.
I'd just like to make a couple comments. I think what was on the agenda, even though it was limited to protecting to the Wakulla Springs Protection Zone, having that requirement for upgrading when extensive repairs or replacements are needed is really important for the protection zone, because if you only put these nitrogen-reducing systems in with new homes, hardly any are going to go in the protection zone. And so,
Isn't that the goal?
No, the goal was eventually to convert them all to nitrogen-reducing. And the only way you convert the existing ones is they either connect to sewer, or when they have to be replaced or a major repair, that they then get upgraded.
I brought that up because that was a consensus I understood the board had. It wasn't unanimous consensus, obviously, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And because I just know a lot of people, they want to upgrade, say they go from a small mobile home to a house or whatever, they want to be able to reuse their existing septic tank, and all they need to do is add some drain field, or if you're lower income, elderly, and you need to repair your septic system, you can't afford a $8,000 septic system, and I think that we should allow unlimited repairs, and I seem to have agreement on that, so I'm going to stick with it.
Just as long as you realize that even though you're saying this is going to apply to the Wakulla Springs Protection Zone, we're basically doing nothing in the Wakulla Springs Protection Zone.
Unless you're building a new house. Yeah. Unless you're building a new house in the Wakulla Springs Protection Zone, you have to have a performance-based system. If that's nothing, then I guess...
I have one more clarification, sorry. The reason I'm asking so many questions is because if we need to get this right tonight in order to make the next Planning Commission agenda. Otherwise, we're going to be delayed an additional month. So, you said unlimited repairs.
And modifications.
I got that. But what about, and I don't know if, from a technical perspective, if there's a total failure and it has to be replaced, are you including that
That's
in?
That's considered a repair.
Okay.
In my mind.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
If not, if the state health department, I don't know what the best way, new construction only is going to require these. That'd probably be the easiest way to say it.
Okay.
That way it excludes all repairs, all modifications.
So if somebody is doubling the size of their septic tank, so they'd be building a brand new septic tank, basically.
Well,
they would
with the current systems, you could add a tank in series. You don't have to double the size. I've done the modifications like this before. You'd add a tank in series, you add some drain field to get the proper tank size and the proper drain field size, and that's a modification.
Okay.
I got...
do you want to hear from the citizens, or do you want to...
Well, I'll just carry on with where...
Okay. Okay.
Randy is. I have one additional item to that. First of all, I can't pronounce Swalettes very well. I don't understand what they are all that much. But we've got that you've got to be 150 feet away from a Swalette. My understanding of Swalette, it's more or less a depression.
No, it's a disappearing stream. I mean, the water goes straight
rare.
down like a whirlpool down into the aquifer.
Very, very rare.
There are two types of Swalettes, that's my understanding. There's a connected Swalette, that's what you're talking about. And then there's a unconnected, where it's, if you have a...
Buffer only applies if it's connected to the aquifer.
Well, I
Special
think
buffers
by
you're talking
definition,
about.
Swalettes are connected to the aquifer. You can have some sinkholes and so forth that aren't connected to the aquifer, but Swalettes, where else is the water going? It's going down into the
Come up the
aquifer.
word swallow, where it's swallowing the water, right?
So a swallet is a stream that's coming and all of a sudden it disappears underground. Okay.
They're very rare. Lost Creek, you'd have to be, the swallow is where the water goes in the ground itself.
So,
Like
if...
Lost Creek and Black Creek that they were discussing earlier. Okay.
So I have no problem with that as long as we're just not talking about a depression in the
A dry
topography.
sinkhole, no.
Okay.
Dry sinkholes aren't included in this.
Okay.
This will come back.
We have some citizens who filled out some cards to speak on this issue. First up, Jonathan Clark.
Jonathan Clark, 109 Garner Circle. I live just south of East Ivan Road, which would put me into the Wakulla Springs area by the last map that was drawn out. And if my understanding is correct. Now, real dollars on this. I just spent approximately $6,000 to have my drain field replaced because my piping had collapsed and dirt and debris had gotten in there and it would no longer drain. I already have a pump system, so I've got the septic tank and I've got a holding tank that pumps to a remote drain field which is elevated, which was a very expensive system that I had to purchase originally. And I got in a day or two before the last permitting. I was one of the last couple permits that was approved to have my system fixed. We're talking the difference between $6,000, which I ultimately paid, including the sod, and $10,000 to $12,000, which was the estimate that I was given to have this aerobic system put in. Okay? I do things with cash. I don't borrow money. I don't go get a loan from the bank, as was suggested in the Wakulla News a few months ago. I don't do that. I'm not going to do that. Okay, so that kind of puts me in a pickle. So I paid $5,000 to $6,000 in cash to have my system fixed. Of course, I got no cash left, but that's irrelevant. Now, another thing that disturbs me is these aerobic systems. I've got to pay a couple $100 a year additionally to continually have this stuff inspected. Now you say $1,500, okay? I needed a pump. I don't have much time, I know that. I needed a pump. And to just simply have that pump replaced was over $1,100, which almost would meet that $1,500 threshold, where I would now have to pay $10,000 to $12,000 to have my system repaired. So we really need to just do as the commissioner suggested.
And he did away with the threshold. That's what his motion was.
I understand that. I'm just... I'll be back. I'm in support of it.
Are you over 5 acres, sir? Are you?
Yes, sir. I'm
So you make the cut on the 5 acres?
I do.
And remember, try not to engage, and I apologize. We try not to have back and forth conversation. Just not your fault. They engaged.
I kind of like engagement, but thank you, Commissioner. And that's all I got to say. I agree with the proposal. I appreciate it. And I'm a lot less emotional about it than I was 2 months ago when the septic tank gentleman is on the phone trying to get a permit, and it was kind of a surprise to me. And so I'm wanting to get back out there with a shovel and dig it up myself. $12,000, that's a big deal. And I say, oh, you can't do that. I know that, but I'm just saying we really need to make the approval and the adjustment as has been suggested. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Chuck Hess.
Chuck Hess, 112 Lake Ellen Circle. this is all about water protection. And, you're trying to balance the economic cost with the amount of, protection of our aquifer and our water systems. And, there's also economic costs to allowing them to be polluted. Now, every spring in Florida is now polluted. I guess there is one, and Juniper Springs in the middle of the Ocala National Forest still meets the requirement, that isn't considered nitrogen polluted. But every other spring in Florida is polluted with nitrogen. It causes algae growth, it changes the ecology of the system, makes hydrilla much more consistent, much more competitive with the other species, changes and starts changing the rivers. If we're going to protect Wakulla Springs, we've got to come up with ways to make sure that our nitrogen loads stay low. We've got to be you have to carry the banner for protecting the springs. We can't just say, oh, it's all, Tallahassee's problem. It's all Georgia's problem. It's all of our problems. It occurs across the state. We have to protect the springs. This proposal, while it, when you look at the spring shed, you've just taken Spring Creek out, as I understand it. Spring Creek runs to Wakulla Springs. They're all part of the same system. You go out and do your perk test, that water goes in the ground, and you can put that septic tank in, that's going to Wakulla Springs in some shape, form, or fashion. Last meeting we had somebody say that you didn't have to protect, didn't need septic tanks, advanced wastewater treatment facilities in Panacea. Well, in the 1980s, Bob Livingston showed that most of the pollution that comes in our bays and areas of the coast comes from septic tanks along the coast. These polluting activities have been known for a long time, and we need to do whatever we can to minimize them. I'm not sure you're doing that with this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ron Pisaki?
Yeah, Ron Pisaki, representing Wakulla Springs Alliance again. As Chuck just said, you've got the Spring Creek spring shed, and I know when we talked on the water resolution, the board itself was adamant that we protect the water quantity in the spring shed in Spring Creek. I think quality is just as important in protecting. And as Todd talked about, you've got water coming up, and if you've got nutrients running into the creeks, into the water there from houses, that's going to bring nitrates back up again into Wakulla Springs. Now, I think the point that's being emphasized, Randy's making it, and this gentleman just talked before, cost. At some time, Wakulla County has to address having a management entity to manage, inspect, and pay for septic systems. And this may be the way that you have to set it up as a quasi-utility, that everybody with a septic system pays a flat fee per month, just like you would for telephone, a nominal amount, but their systems are inspected free of charge. If they need to be replaced or repaired, depending upon where they're located, if they're up where Randy was raised, we put a standard system in. If they're at an area that's endangering any of the coastal waters in the springs, then you put a performance-based system in. But that entity would pay for it, and the individual owner, resident, doesn't get stuck with a $10,000, $12,000 bill. But until the board establishes such an entity, you're going to constantly run into these kind of issues. And the city of Tallahassee raised utility fees 40% to everybody on the sewer system to pay for all the upgrades. At some point, if we're serious about protecting our most valuable resource for coasts, for fishing, for livelihood, for green guides, tourism, for 200,000 people a year that go to Wakulla Springs, we're going to have to address this problem and get some sort of management hold on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bob Janzi?
My name is Bob Danzy. I live in Spring Creek, and thank you for letting me speak. The first thing I'll say is the two gentlemen that spoke and left, I would ask that you would disregard their comments, because if they didn't have the passion to stay here a few more minutes to the appropriate time to speak, then I don't see how they should be credible. So,
They had another engagement.
yes, ma'am. You can't engage because I can't ask you to do it. Then you can't do it. But those guys could have stayed if they really felt. And one of them even admitted that he wasn't an expert. Now, the second thing is, I support this, but I would ask that you go from 5 acres to 2 acres, because that's about where the balance is when you start getting to where people are putting in the city sewer in neighborhoods. There's a little bit of a span from the 2 acres to the 5 acres where people are going to get lost in there. It's up to you, but I would support that and work for you to defend you about that. I would also recommend that it be the whole county. I think that would be appropriate also. Mr. Pasecki here, I respect him, but all he's asking for is more government. Just more government. He just asked y'all to pile on more taxes and more government, and then you're going to have people come up here, like last meeting when you have a guy that used to be a part of this board, and then he comes up and gets on to y'all for spending more money. Well, if you do what he says and you go up on taxes, then those kind of people are just going to come beat you up. So you can't do that. You got to let people be a little bit more independent, and don't give us so much government. Give us the ability to use the bathroom in our house and take a shower. You know, that's really all we're asking for. The skies are not falling compared to what some may say. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, Ms. Judith Harris.
Judith Harris, 89 Greeno Road. I'd like to support the comments made by Ron and Chuck, and just add that I think we have to do the most we can do to protect our water. We're dependent on our water for so much. So I support nitrogen-reducing septic systems, if that's what it takes. I also think if we're not, as a board, as a county, looking at what we can do in this county and just say it's Georgia's problem, it's Tallahassee's problem, and we're not doing what we can do, which is to protect our water quality to the max with performance-based systems where they're needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all the citizens who filled out speakers cards for this item.
I want to be sure I've clarified enough. On section 1.38A, Heather, let me get back to it. I think if we just take that out altogether, that will accomplish kind of what I'm talking about.
Hold on. We're not amending policy 1.3.1. Is that where you are?
No. Page 2 of 2, policy 1.3.8.
Okay.
Just strike A altogether, because that's the one that refers to repairs and modifications. Okay, just above that, subparagraph C under 1.3.7, it says all properties throughout the county where the total acreage is less than .229 contiguous acres. That should say all properties in the area described above, shouldn't it?
No, I think it's the whole county. You said the whole county.
Okay, I'm sorry. Hey, I stand corrected. Anybody can make a mistake. A lot of people have asked me what that is. That's 2 50 by 100 lots put together. So if you have one 50 by 100 lot in Wacola Gardens, you have to have a performance base. If you build on 2 or more, then you can have a regular one. And under A, 1.3.7A, all properties where central wastewater systems are not available in the described area below, I think that's where we should add and are on a contiguous piece of property less than 5 acres. So, in other words, if they had, I want to give somebody the ability to have unity of title like we do, you know what I'm saying? If you have several pieces of property you can put together to make 5 acres and you do a unity of title with the county, and just for the public's edification, the 5 acres is the zoning, is the acreage size allowed by agricultural zoning. So we're trying to encourage agricultural sized properties in this Springs area. It wasn't just pulled out of the air. So that's all I got to say.
Pat, I know you were here when you weren't here when the initial modifications were proposed, so I want to make sure you understand how this is on the table as revised, and if you have any comments related to that. Beg your pardon?
No, I understand them all.
Okay, that no repairs, even in the protection zone, will trigger, even a complete replacement of a system will trigger upgrade to performance-based.
You're welcome, our Public Health Director, Pat Juarez.
Hi, thanks for, I'm sorry, I figured you should probably come up here instead of in the back of the room. I do understand, and as I have mentioned before, on most of this, it is a political decision. Scientifically speaking, that any systems in that area would need to be advanced systems. However, in many things in life, you can only go so far with an issue. And so I do understand if no repairs, it's no repairs. If it's 5 acres, whatever the case may be, it does come down to what is acceptable to the people.
Can you give me, given your knowledge of how many septic tanks are in the protection zone within our county, can you give me some rough estimate of how many new ones are likely to go in the next decade or so, or how many are existing that are now not going to be upgraded, that we know are going straight to Wakulla Springs? Do you have those numbers?
I do have them. I do not have them in front of me, and I can't supply them to the board. I can give you an approximate.
Approximately.
And those numbers, by the way, were in the report that was given to you by Pio Lombardo that the county paid for. So the exact numbers are in there, and the estimates are in there too for the amount of growth. But in that area that we've described, there's going to be less than 2,000 systems currently. Countywide, not state. Countywide, there's about 10,000 systems. The growth that goes on in that area, for us, that since I've been in this county, has all been in the Woodville area. There has been relatively little growth elsewhere in that zone. It's been in the Woodville area and also the part that gets down closer here to Crawfordville proper itself. But in the rest of it, there really hasn't been that much growth. Now, as far as repairs and modification, yeah, there's been some of those, because again, we do have a few of the neighborhoods that are just south of Bloxham Cutoff that there's some, but those have been, again, to be honest, have been minor compared to the rest of the county. And, I'm sorry, and you wanted an approximate?
You'll have the ability, if you want, this is just to advertise the public hearing, you can email those numbers to us as a follow-up.
Right, but if we're going to do any further reshaping of what's going to be advertised to the public hearing, I guess since he was involved in the negotiations on the committee that first came up with what was recommended, I just would like his input.
Tad, would and you and I talked about this, about the standard of repair or modification performance, such as the drain field must be 24-inch separation above the seasonal high water table. Is that above and beyond what the state, we're going to leave that in there, but is that above and beyond what the state septic code requires?
If you put in a new system now, that is the requirement. What the state law says is for repairs, they have to do the best they can. So if they have a system laying in the water, they can still put it right back in the water. So this is above and beyond what the state's requiring. It's adding that level of protection, not only for bacterial reasons, that's why I'm mostly interested in that one, for public health reasons, but also it does give that an opportunity for the roots to pull out some of that nitrogen.
So if this wasn't statement wasn't in there and we just said you can repair whatever, you bring it up to whatever standards were there in the time you permitted, or is that the modification?
No, that's repair. The technical line says do the best they can.
Okay.
They're supposed to have a 10-inch separation, but even back in the days of old, back in the 70s, they were putting them deep in the ground. So there's several that I have been on repairs in our county that the drain field's over my head. I'm down in the ditch so far. Modern drain fields, by the way, are about knee-high.
Yes, 30 inches.
Commissioner Arts, did you want to re-ask your question again? I apologize for cutting you off.
That's fine. I have a couple comments I'd like to make, but not,
Any further questions for Pat before he... Okay, thank you, sir.
Sorry for being delayed.
Commissioner Merritt, I had a quick question. Is there not a level, and I have not... I've asked a lot of questions, and I'm just trying to make sure I follow and understand this as best I can. Is there at a point, like if someone has to completely replace their septic tank right now, but they already have one, under the way it's proposed now, they can just put in a new one just like the one they had?
I guess we shouldn't ask Pat to sit down, because that was the question I had earlier. Pat, I guess it's the Department of Health's definition of a repair. Is a repair completely replacing the entire system? Is that considered a repair?
If, under state law, you can replace the tank and you can replace the drain field for a repair.
At the same time?
At the same time.
So yes, you could do that.
Do you think, and just as an effort towards moving in a direction, you're comfortable with that as the way it currently is? Okay.
I am. I don't think, like Pat said, there's levels of effort. If we wanted to make 319 really, really safe, we'd put the speed limit at 15 miles an hour from here to Tallahassee. Then there'd be less car wrecks. But there's a point where we try to do the best we can to protect the environment, and then there's the point where it's just aren't enough people aren't willing to accept that much.
Well, and I agree. My concern becomes, I think, if someone's completely replacing their septic tank.
I think the easiest way to make it easy for those guys to understand is follow the state definition. If the state says it's a repair, let's leave it at that, and let's not us make our own definition for repair that they have to interpret.
So
that's just my opinion.
So our ordinance would say repair as the official language. It wouldn't actually.
It would say
it wouldn't spell out replacement. What page are you on in this?
Well, I was on 1.3.8. Paragraph comes out.
Okay.
Did you want the definition of repair?
Sure.
Just so you understand. Definition of repair is when a system is in failure, meaning that there's surfacing sewage somewhere in the system. That is pulled out, that is called on by the septic contractors. So typically a septic contractor will say, yep, your system's in failure, and then at that point, that's when we can write a permit. So really, any system that they want to can be in repair if it's in failure, any system.
And most times the repair is the drain fields failing, I assume, saturated.
Hydraulic overload is what a technical term, meaning that the water's backing up.
So you're saying you want to remove all of that 1.38 versus just the part that has the price?
Will that accomplish what I was trying to do?
I think if you just remove the price, it does what you're trying to do.
Okay, just say a standard repair modification is defined in blah, 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 or successor in function may be permitted, period.
Mm-hmm. That way, if some point...
That's fine with me.
Okay. And I'm about to go to you back in a second, Commissioner Arts. I want to make one additional comment.
Take your time.
I am finished again with you, Pat. I'm about to sit down for a bit.
All right, Pat.
I appreciate you.
Good exercise.
For me, and how I've looked at this issue, and I've talked about this some, you had the gentleman who spoke at the beginning of our meeting who talked about some of the things we're doing for water protection in our community. And I agree, and the studies are proving that it's coming from the north towards us is where the problem's coming from. It's Leon County, Gadsden County, Georgia, is where a lot of the issues are coming to Wakulla Springs with the high nitrogen. And I wanted to make sure, and one of the things why I still think we definitely still need these protections is that I don't want those communities like Leon County was pointing out has raised their utility bill to help improve our water quality at Wakulla Springs. It gives them a stronger argument to weaken that if we if we have nothing down here? Why are we spending millions of dollars and Wakulla County is doing nothing? What I did was reach out to some leaders on this issue in Leon County and Tallahassee and ask them about the different proposed changes we have. And I'm gonna have to follow up on the replacement thing because I haven't asked that question. That's why I was trying to make sure I understood it. But so far, the argument that was the conversation that I had. Apparently, the studies that have gone on, when the water does reverse right now, the nitrates coming out of Wakulla Springs are at an appropriate level, to my understanding. The issue is when it's heading south. And so that they thought as long as we were still protecting the northern part of the Wakulla Springs Basin, they didn't anticipate there being any problems from the city of Tallahassee or anyone up there. So I was comfortable with that and still continuing forward. I'm going to double check and follow up again about replacement, just to make sure I can still see what kind of reaction that gets. But
I was cognizant of that fact that and that's why I didn't really support Jerry just getting rid of it altogether. Then we don't, then we're sitting at a table trying to say, well, you Tallahassee, Leon County, they really need a performance-based ordinance in the Woodville area, which I don't know if they can now because of the new law, but at least we are making the effort. And I spoke about this when the septic tank first came up. Is like there wasn't really any rhyme or reason put to it to say this is where we need it, and it's hard to justify it to someone that they're not benefiting the springs. That was the whole impetus of this, was to try to get Tallahassee moving along the line to improve their wastewater system. They did, and I think we're doing our part, and I think City of Tallahassee's doing their part. For now.
Mr. Arndt?
Yeah, I'm not sure that people there would consider this doing our part, especially if we aren't requiring the upgrades for the existing systems. And I know Jack Leopard isn't here tonight, but he was one of the key people who led the charge against the city of Tallahassee upgrading to AWT, and their permit's up, and he thinks this, weakening this is going to affect those negotiations. But I guess that, for me, I mentioned before, I don't hear people in the audience saying, we want more polluted water. That people don't want the polluted water. What people are worried about is the money. But we're spending all of our time focusing on ways to increase the pollution as a way to address the financial things, rather than finding ways to make these systems more affordable, easier for people to pay. And there are ways, and we have some, but we didn't even have a workshop about what those options are. And the other thing, I know you got some of that during the infrastructure committee meetings.
We've had workshops, Lynn. We've had
not on the management entities.
Didn't we have one on clustering systems in Wakulla Gardens or something like that?
Right, but not on how can we put these systems in so that homeowners don't have to pay a lot of money. We haven't had a workshop on that. And there are a number of options that were outlined, Julie Harrington in particular, about how to do that. So anyway, so that's one. If money's the problem, let's focus on a solution to the cost issue and not just ramp up the pollution. And the other thing is, I can't help but take a really long-term view on this. Right now, we have 10,000 septic tanks in our county, which is about one for every 3 people. If we achieve Jerry's goal of trying to get our population up to 70,000, which he's stated several times, anyway.
In a year.
But seriously, that's this critical mass or whatever you've said we need. But
please excuse me, it's not a goal, it's actually what will happen.
Okay, well, so regardless, when we get up to 70,000 people in Wakulla County, my estimate is instead of 10,000 septic tanks, we're now going to have over 23,000 septic tanks polluting our springs, our rivers, our bay, our sinkholes. And it's one thing to look at the cost. Okay, here's how much performance-based systems cost. And you could figure out what's the dollar amount for how much you reduce the nitrogen. But nobody's looking at the other impacts. If Wakulla Springs turns into this black lagoon with no birds, but, people aren't going to want to come visit. And if our coastline is covered with algae, people aren't going to want to come and spend time. And then property values go down. People with coastal properties aren't even going to be able to sell their houses or on the rivers. And again, it's a long-term view. Where is this going to take us in however many years, 20 years, 30 years? I don't know. We have a pollution problem now. We had something in place that was going to gradually keep us from getting into a really bad situation, and we're throwing that out.
I wouldn't be quite as fatalistic, Ms. Sartz. Very well said, but I think we need to concentrate on getting central sewer, and that's the thing we need to do. If the growth happens, I think it's going to be in subdivisions that have central sewer.
Well, yeah, I think to first of all, I've been looking at the sewer costs lately in terms of the electrical costs for running all of our wastewater treatment plant, all of these lift stations. Sewer is really expensive. And it's foolish to think that in a rural county you're going to run sewer everywhere.
Maybe not everywhere.
Well, there's going to be a lot of places. There's going to be a lot of septic tanks that are in the ground, and sewer actually leaks too. It's not the perfect thing. There's infiltration and whatever as well. It seems to me it's very short-sighted, and it's not addressing the real problem, which was we've got a technology that works. Why not find a way to help people afford it? Or at least, even if you're going to get away with from requiring, let's put some incentives in to encourage people to do the right thing. Nobody's even talked about any incentives. I guess if you aren't willing to go the upgrade route, what is your thought about requiring them for new systems countywide?
No. How can I tell my cousin in Smith Creek that he needs a performance-based septic system to help Wakulla Springs?
If it's a brand new, that's okay.
Because it makes no sense. It defies.
You think? Okay.
I mean, yes, if we were saying let's take things to the nth degree and do everything humanly possible to protect Wakulla Springs, yes. Would it be better to put a diaper on a deer in the Wakulla forest than it would be to have a performance base? Probably would help the springs more. That deer's going to put out more nitrogen than my cousin in Smith Creek that goes to the springs. You see what I'm saying? There's levels of effort. Realistic.
We know septic tanks are the number, after the spray field, septic tanks are the number one source.
I agree.
So.
Does the septic tank in Smith Creek, though, affect the springs? No.
No, there's probably a river or some other, whatever. I don't know what karst features.
There could be infinite number of arguments for, and if you want them, you can make the argument why.
Okay, but the suggestion had been made, go with confining layer where there's clay, and I don't know. Over in the National Forest, there's clay layers, so maybe Smith Creek, some of it's even on confining. I don't know.
He also said, I'm sorry, Alan, that the place to focus the most effort will be on the Woodville Karst area, which is exactly what we're doing.
Woodville Karst is most of the county.
Well, the area that influences the spring. Then he said the spring shed. I'm not going to quote the man out. Even when he got up here, I said it was going to be his personal opinion, but my motion stands.
His priority. I know.
Mr. Arts, did you have a suggestion or idea for an incentive?
I've been trying to think about it. I know some of the suggestions I've bounced off. I haven't done a lot of work on the incentives, but because I wanted to see where this was going to go.
I'm sorry, but incentives
think-
for what again? Just to
For
encourage?
encouraging people to put in. There are people who have put these in voluntarily.
No.
Sandy Cook,
And they can keep
for
doing that.
example. But
There's nothing wrong with, if I want to spend, if I want to waste $12,000 and put it in, I'll do it. But I'm not going to because science hasn't proved to me yet that they work.
I think we have indirectly incentivized it by saying that if you're on more than 5 acres in this area, you don't have to have one. That's, to me, that's indirectly putting an incentive in there instead of saying, well, I'll build on a half acre, what's going to cost you an extra $8,000? Well, I'll build on 5, and wouldn't it be better to have less dents in that area that influences the springs than it would be to have, in other words, would it be better to have one septic tank on 5 acres or have 5 performance-based septic systems?
Well, I
Not
agree.
loading is still the,
but I don't know that that'll really be an incentive to affect density.
be amazing.
You know, we have a certain idea of what the damage is, the pollution to Wakulla Springs. I'm not sure we actually have a knowledge of what part of that damage is related to Wakulla County. Can we break out how much Tallahassee does and how much, does anybody know exactly how much that Wakulla County contributes?
No.
That's just a guess. Pat just said that we probably had 2,000 septic tanks in the north area that we're talking about. Well, we're not talking about all 2,000 of those being bad. Maybe 50 of them are bad.
No, they're all bad in terms of nitrogen. They all pollute.
Do you know how much they're polluting the springs? Can you tell me how much those 200 are, you know, but
It's the
I think a lot of what you're doing, or a lot of what you're talking about, is your perception of something that may happen at some future time if the world goes down.
Performance-based systems, they pollute too. They pollute 50% less, but they still pollute, correct?
I would say that probably, Pat, do you have any idea how many septic tanks are in Leon County that feed into this system?
There are definitely more in southern Leon County than there are in northern Wakulla.
Well, he may have an idea here. Let's see, he probably does know that. He knows everything.
Had a couple answers for you, and actually, acquaintance here is looking up the answer in the Peel report that that is out there for you all to review, and I'll get this number for you also. We do have the calculated percentage and the calculated amount that's coming out of north of Wakulla County, and the amount that's contributed, the nitrogen contributed by Wakulla County in that area. And we do
know that number.
At a point in
off my head, I
time.
don't have the number. We do have that number, though. Yes, we do have that number. You know, so it is broken down into how much percentage-wise is put in by Leon County, how much is put in by Wakulla County, and then there's even a percentage that's by by Georgia and coming down.
But the only way we make a dent in it is by encouraging or requiring everybody to contribute to solving the problem. It's one, if you have what's called point pollution, like the city of Tallahassee spray field, it's really easy to focus on them and say, even if it costs you $4 million or whatever, you need to fix this. When you've got many people all contribute a little, but the total is just as great as the spray field, then it's much harder to say, any one person or the 2,000 in northern Wakulla, each one is contributing a small amount, and it's easy to say, it won't make a difference. But that's why it needs to be everybody's contributing to the problem, everybody needs to help do something to resolve it. The thing is, people can't afford it, and I understand that, but we aren't even talking about ways to make it affordable. We're just saying, let's throw it out and not worry about the consequences or the long-range cost. When our ecotourism is in the toilet because we've let everything get so polluted that nobody wants to come visit.
And so, you really think this is going to happen in the next 200 years?
Do I think it's going to happen?
Because of us changing the septic tank rules tonight, that the Wakulla Springs is going to turn into a black lagoon?
Yeah, Wakulla's already headed toward the Black Lagoon.
Oh, that's only the top part of the water
I think that's
table.
being a shade fatalistic. I think since the spray field stopped spreading ammonium nitrate on their fields, and that was a huge contributor to the nitrogen, and the upgrades they're doing, I think Wakulla Springs will be here and be beautiful 500 years from now.
I think Thad has our answer.
I'm so sorry that took that long. The answer is in the area that we were talking about in Wakulla County, 1,100 septic systems, not 2,000. That was my overestimation.
Oh, wonderful.
And in Leon County, in the area that is not sewered and in the area that's affecting Wakulla Springs, it is estimated to be 7,500.
So we're 7-1.
Approximately, yes.
And if the Woodville sewer gets run through, as has been talked about, roughly how many of those will get off
That would be
onto
a
sewer?
large contributor, a very large contributor.
I'm glad you brought that up, Ms. Arts. That doesn't increase the amount of nitrogen we put in the springs. It may increase our percentage. It does not increase the amount. We hadn't added more because they take less.
I know it's a percentage.
Okay.
Well, I mean, obviously, this board's ready to retreat in a major way.
This is just a motion to schedule a public hearing, so I'm sure there'll be plenty more chances to talk.
What we had on the, what we were looking at on the agenda, I think would have been it would have been a much more of evidence-based
I dare say
compromise.
I dare say I don't think you would have voted for it, though, Ms. Sargent. Anyway.
That one was better than this one.
All right. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. It passes 4-1. Again, I want to reiterate what we've done now is scheduled a public hearing. This will come up again for public discussion at a future meeting.
It's so sad. It's not personal, it's just sad.
Item 14 has been tabled to the May 7th meeting. Item 15. It is past 6:30. Let's have some citizens to be heard. First this evening we'll hear from Miss Jenny Brock. Which item was taken again? 14.
I'm Jenny Brock. I live at 311 Old Magnolia Road. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. Mary Cortez, who is the president of the League of Women Voters, is out of town and has asked me to remind you that on April the 26th at 7 p.m. in the library, the League will host a roundtable discussion. Danielle Peterson, who has studied extensively the new election laws, will be at the meeting to help everyone understand how these new laws work. So we invite you all to be there. You can throw out your questions, your apprehensions, or whatever, and someone will at least have an answer or know where to go to get the answer. So please attend.
Thank you. Mr. Vic Lambu?
Thank you. Vic Lambu. Commissioners, several meetings ago, you were talking about, and I still understand the consideration of weakening our wetlands rules. I was prepared to speak then, but I was not allowed because you didn't allow any public input. As I understand, what's being discussed is modifications to our statutes which would make it easier to obtain exceptions to no development in the 75-foot no development buffer zone around our previous wetlands. Let me again point out that wetlands are the lifeblood of our commercial and sport fisheries and tourism. They serve as kidneys, preventing pollutants from entering our waters. They serve as nature grounds for both aquatic and terrestrial life. They reduce flooding and protect us from hurricanes. Wetlands are Wakulla's golden goose, vital to our quality of life and economic well-being. Does the buffer restrict all development? No. No, it does not. Our wetland statutes allows for establishment of variance procedures where you commissioners have the final say in granting or refusing to grant an exception. The record shows that you have granted exceptions. And I'm sure you're capable of doing so in the future. Has the present system of making these decisions caused problems? From the previous discussions, it seems like that you had, there has been no problems. So then why do you want to change a procedure that is not broken? All indication is it's not broken. Is it to make it easier to get exceptions? To keep the public ignorant? Is it so the public will not have any input in the decision-making process? My understanding that you want to take the decisions away from the commission and put it back to staff. Exceptions can be made to the no development in the buffer zone. 2. That's the one, the outer zone, 35 to 75 foot wetlands, no development zone. And there should be exceptions. Not something but it shouldn't be that something that's routinely granted. The buffer zone 1, the first 35 feet around a wetland should not be developed. 35 feet is an extremely short distance to the wetlands, almost within spitting distance. And I bet you some of you could spit that far. 3 of you voted for the wetlands ordinance, and Commissioner Stewart is an advertisement in our local paper when he was running for his present seat, listed my 10 top priorities. The first one on the list was to protect our environment. Commissioners, wetlands are Wakulla's golden goose. I know that elections will be held this year, but the protection of our wetlands should be nonpartisan, and it should not get into the political arena. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. W.D. Lansford.
W.D. Lansford, Panacea. Thank you, Commissioners. 2 weeks ago, I stood before you and enumerated a few instances of where your benefits were not benefiting me. Well, let me tell you about something that did happen here recently. We had a medical emergency down in Panacea, duly called in, duly responded to by the ambulance and the first responders. Treated the patient, loaded the patient up, and transported him off. Everything returned back to normal. Then off in the distance we heard some sirens coming in. And sure enough, here came the big fire engine from Crawfordville down there to the scene of the accident or scene of the incident. The ambulance and first responders were long gone. Somewhere up there on 98 or 319, the ambulance and the fire department crossed paths, evidently. So anyway, there's my tax dollars at work. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. I'm not through.
Sorry, I apologize.
That's all right. Apology accepted. Anyway, what I've been trying to get across to you people and to the people and the citizens of Wakulla County is, let me put it this way. I can remember my grandmother taking an ice pick and picking away at a block of ice to get ice for iced tea. Keep chipping away, chipping away, chipping away. Well, I look at my freedoms as being like that ice block. And you folks are sitting there chipping away, chipping away, chipping away. What freedoms am I talking about? Freedom of choice. I had a choice to either choose the waste system or not, and I chose not to use it. Now I have no choice. I am being charged for the solid waste assessment. Same thing with all of these other assessments that you keep putting out. The citizens have a freedom of choice, which you all keep restricting. Now, one of these days, the citizens are going to finally realize that they have no freedoms left. It's all a little pile of chips down here. Come on, folks. Let's be a little bit more conservative in some of our thinking here, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Gail Hickman.
I'm Gail Hickman. I live at 528 Hickorywood Drive. Commissioner Moore, in his agenda tonight, wants to change the rules of the Planning Commission. As it stands, each commissioner, one from each district, appoints a person to represent their district on the Planning Commission. The significance of this is important because the citizens of our 5 districts each have their concerns and issues protected equally by their own representative. Besides the 5, the BOCC then appoints 2 citizens at large. One would be a minority. That is our voting board. Commissioner Moore wants St. Mark's and Sopchoppy to have an extra vote because they are, he says, municipalities. Remember, St. Mark's has only approximately 300 citizens. This is not logic because as municipalities, they have their own planning board. Besides being represented by their district appointee on the County Planning Commission. What has become very clear to me is that Commissioner Moore is concerned with special interest groups, not a planning commission established for and run by the people. He is a land developer and owns a lot of land in McCullough County. I think there is something in it for him, or he wouldn't suggest this because it lacks logic. Shame on you, Mr. Moore. 2 commissioners, Mr. Brock and Mr. Stewart, are running for re-election. I can't believe they are for special interest groups and not for the people equally. Let's see how they vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ron Paisaki. Last but not least.
I come with good news for change.
Good.
Friday and Saturday is the Wildlife Festival at Wakulla Springs. Friday night we have the art show, music with Sammy Tedder, hors d'oeuvres, cash bar. You can buy art or just look at it. And then all day Saturday we have the outdoor festival. And it's one of the major events for the Friends of Wakulla Springs. Instead of an entry fee, you make a donation, and most of the donation goes to us, and a lot of these funds are used to help in boat restoration. So I just look forward to seeing everybody out there Friday night and all day Saturday, and I know you have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That concludes citizens to be heard. We're now on to item 15. Request board approval of a proclamation declaring May 6th through 12th of the year 2012 as Public Service Recognition Week. We have a motion and a second. Do we have further discussion?
I think it's a great idea. We need to recognize our folks, and I hope I can get there for some of that good food.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to have a Sunday social.
Where? All right, excellent.
Ice cream.
It's an ice cream.
Oh,
Sunday.
Friday, May 11th, the county commission offices will be closed at 4 p.m. to recognize county employees, public employees.
Are we going to let Cleve come, or no?
I don't know. We'll see.
Only if he cooks.
Only if he cooks.
Any further discussion from the board?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Oh, any opposed? All right, it passes unanimously. Item 16 this evening is request board ratification of field change orders and approval of a budget amendment transferring road infrastructure reserve funds to Old Shell Point Road in order to complete a paving project. Mr. Cleve Fleming will be leading this item. And the county administrator pointed out that there's an additional change order to the item as listed.
Back in 2010, we started paving Old Shell Point Road, which is I worked personally on Old Shell Point Road 5 years. I know Commissioner Merritt at least 2 years.
More than that.
And this was a very tough road. It didn't quite get all the right-of-way we wanted, but we made some compromises, and at the end of the day, we got asphalt, a 20-foot right-of-way road on one of the worst roads in the county as far as vehicle maintenance and doing damages to the citizens, and it's good for the community. Like I said, we paved what we had to work with instead of the previous board chose not to go after the 60-foot right-of-way, and we tried to fit the road into the existing right-of-way. But we had to get some right-of-ways and make some compromises up there. But in the middle of the process, after we got under construction, we stopped construction due to financial concerns of the county. 10 months later, we restarted the process, and we had some costs escalate and some reworking of existing roadways, and so anyway, we ended up having some change orders, and we're asking for a transfer of money to cover those change orders and complete the road going forward. We have a couple of fences to build, sod and signs.
Make a motion to approve the ratify the field change orders and approve the budget amendment transferring 64,677 from reserves fund 317 to Old Shell Point Road paving project.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second. Is there any additional conversation or discussion with our Public Works Director?
I think, and I'm not sure what
Only thing we need to bring before the board is, back in November, the continuing service contract, in January, the continuing service contract with C.W. Roberts was expiring, and we extended it. We had put on the extension at $64 a ton for the cost of asphalt.
Yeah,
and in reality, once the sentence to C.W. Roberts, that was struck out and goes with the current price of $89 a ton, which is explainable because the prices that we had priced out at that time, we priced out with 2 other vendors that fell well under that. So anyway, you had approved it at 64, but yet the actual number should have been 89. Just wanted to bring that to your attention.
And we went to a contractor that's actually doing work for us now, PB Construction, and asked him what he could supply the asphalt with. Currently, the price for the asphalt, and he was $5 a ton more than C.W. Roberts. And we went to a second contractor, and they were like $7 above what C.W. Roberts was giving us. But this was all due to the escalating oil prices that we've had in the last 6 months.
And this will cover what you need to finish it, clear the sod.
Yes.
But Commissioner Merritt, if you wouldn't mind amending your motion to include changing that contract extension to the $89 per ton, that would help us wrap this all up.
I'll do it.
Is there a friendly second?
Second. Oh, you're asking if he's...
Already seconded. There was a friendly second?
I second.
Okay.
Did the deceleration lane, has that addressed the safety problems adequately?
Yes, and that's one of the things that we did add is that we added a deceleration lane coming off 61 because that created the way the road intersected 61. We squared it back up as opposed to having such coming in at an angle, and we ended up with a wide area, and so people were turning off there real fast, so we created a deceleration lane so they'll move over and slow down and hopefully prevent accidents in the future.
Mr. Moore?
Mr. Cleve, why did you put the stop signs on that road?
That was some of the compromises that we made with the citizens up there. And also we have a severe line of sight issue. I've taken Commissioner Brock up there, if you'll pull up to those intersections, You do not have a good line of sight because we went from requiring 60 foot of right-of-way to we have 30 foot of right-of-way. So you actually have to put the front of your car out into the roadway before you can see both directions. This is, as we've talked about in the past, everybody keeps wondering why we ask for 60 or 50 foot of right-of-way. This is why you do it, is to give you to look left and right and see. And this is is one of the biggest issues that we have.
Mr. Sharp is pointing his finger at me. He's reminded me of this many, many times.
I don't even want to get started about those stop signs, but you can ask anybody that works for the county what I think about them. But hopefully we can work towards maybe getting possibly some land for a site triangle. I agree. The northern road on one of those two roads, it is bad. The southern road, I mean, the road closest to 61, I guess, doesn't seem like it has nowhere near as bad of a problem, but maybe we could work on getting either permission or whatever to clear it so you do have a sight distance and maybe get rid of those stop signs. Because, I don't want to preach about this, but I brought up the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, how we should follow that, and this goes against everything that's in them.
And one other thing in this, the community that we were having to deal with, we had come out as a community and talked about putting a north-south corridor through there, and they said absolutely not. They would not accept that. And the board at that time, the previous board, said they would not force condemnation. So we were in a standoff. So we did have some compromises up there on that road.
And I don't fault Cleveland for those. I mean, I understand.
So having to negotiate a few stop signs is not going to be the end of the world when they got a nice paved road.
I agree with that.
And I mean, 1,000 times better.
I just thought Cleve was interested in stop signs, though.
I dream about stop signs right now.
All right, thank you all very much. Is there any further discussion from our board? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Thank you. As we move on, we have, if there's any citizens here, I'm just going to make a reminder that would like to address any upcoming issue, make sure you fill out a card in advance of the item coming up so that you'll have the chance to be called up to speak on the item. If you won't get the chance to speak unless you filled out a card in advance. Commissioner, agenda item number 17, request board direction regarding proposed ballot survey for Wakulla Gardens improvements, water, sewer, stormwater, and paving voluntary assessments. County Attorney is going to lead this item.
Okay. Pursuant to previous board direction, and as you all know, that there have been numerous instances in the past regarding lack of road access, stormwater problems, lack of adequate utility access, central utilities for both water and wastewater in Wakulla Gardens. I won't rehash that. One of the potential ways that you all have looked at perhaps providing some of these is through an assessment program. You currently have on your books a process for a voluntary assessment. And although this technically isn't that, where the property owners are leading it to you, with all the lots out there, we are sort of following that process. This would be the first ballot underneath that process where you are, in general terms, asking the property owners in Wakulla Gardens if the county was to provide a sort of laundry list of improvements to you, would you be interested in paying for them? We do not have dollars in here. We don't have dollars because it's going to take a lot of time and effort for staff to develop those dollars, and if there is no interest out there, then we don't want to spend that time and money to do that. If this goes forward, you would then have your engineers and your county staff and myself looking at these issues and trying to come up with potential ranges of dollars that each lot would then be charged for the various improvements, and then a second ballot would go out to determine at this price, are you still interested? What we're looking for tonight is whether you want to proceed with this first ballot or whether you want to take a different route.
Heather, would there be any way to break this up by units instead of just grouping? There's 5 units in Wakulla Gardens. Could we possibly, because unit 5, whatever, they might have 80% support, and unit 1, 2, or 3 may not have that support. They're basically separate subdivisions, basically. That would be my suggestion, is to break.
Where you'd send the same ballot out, but ask them we would tally it based upon units?
Units, correct. Say Unit 5, or whatever, Unit 3, 80% of the people agree to it.
I don't see why that would be a problem.
And we can do that by their address, their return address, right? Yeah.
It'll be on the tax, their property ID number will have that, what unit they're in. I mean, if you go ask them, they probably may not know what unit they live in.
Mr. Arts?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions and suggestions. First, what is the cost for mailing the ballots approximately? And what is the cost for the engineering study that would be done?
I have no idea what the engineering study would cost. I mean, the ballots would be time, materials, and postage. It'd probably be about $1 to $1.30 a ballot, I would think, once you're all done.
I would think so, and as far as the engineering is concerned, much of the preliminary engineering has been done already. But the biggest thing there would be breaking it out into the different sections, which we would need to do anyway as you're speaking. That would be one of the things, as well as we'll be efforting as well as part of our ongoing discussions on how to fund potential projects such as this, is we're going to be as far as some other discussions on the other funding mechanisms, but we're looking at asking the tax office to give us the base land, or the value of the base land, as well as the improved structures that's on that, so we can come up with a true value of the area, so that we can really look at what of this area and see what we can realistically monetize as far as borrowing money towards a project, and see if it even comes close to matching what we need.
My suggestions are, one thing to consider is maybe holding this off until we have the Wakulla Gardens team come in, because they might have some other things, ideas or options to add to it. The other thing is, if we're going to send it out now, before we list the options, I think right above the list it needs to say something, would you be willing to pay an annual assessment or fee for stormwater improvements? Otherwise it's more like, do you want these things? I know if you read it carefully, it comes across.
You're right. And I agree, too, along the lines of what you're saying, the cost, this is going to cost $3,000 or $4,000. I would, my answer to option one is going to be, how much are you going to charge me? If it's $10, I might agree to it. If it's $1,000, I may not. Is there any way we can just come up with some sort of ballpark figure where, it's going to be between $100 and $300, at least where people will know that it's not going to be like $5 a year. So, yeah, I'll check every one of these if it's $5 a year. But we know the total, at one time, Heather, you said, was like $800 a year if people decided they wanted everything, basically, based on some earlier estimates. So is it possible to just put a ballpark figure in there? I know
I don't have a ballpark figure. I mean, we'd just be making it up. And the danger, you guys can tell us to do what you want, and whatever that number is, we can put in there. But the danger is, as soon as you put that in there and then something unforeseen happens and we go $1 over that.
Well, this is just to get over the initial hump. We'll have to do a formal pricing once we get once 60% or whatever, then we'll have to do a formal pricing. But I have an Excel spreadsheet that'll do a road paving calculator and at least come up with a ballpark figure based on the tonnage price.
And I understand that, and my thing is, I think it would be a good idea to wait, because we need to get the math of what is out there as far as the true value, because that's at the end of the day, that's going to determine a lot of what we can actually do, whether we can assess or not. We need to know what that value of that area is, and then we can back into all the rest.
How long do you think before you have that available?
We're probably going to have that. We met with the tax office, what was that? Last week. Tim's gone, but I'm hoping to have that within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
So we can put this off.
Is there a motion on the board for this yet?
Not yet.
I'll make a motion to table this item then until
Second.
further bring back.
So we have Okay, a motion to table this item and bring it back.
And again, I just...
Second.
I'm sorry, but I wouldn't say it's completely useless without some sort of ballpark figure for citizens to look at, but it's pretty close to being useless. We don't have some number.
As we start to table this item, I just want to also, I'd like to see us, I want to make this, when we send this out, as friendly, as user-friendly as possible, so that it's very clear and people can understand it and what they're actually talking about. We want to make sure we include like a frequently asked questions, talk about the different things that we've looked at for funding options, like these are the things that we've looked at, other alternatives we looked at for funding, and that it put in a timeline of if we don't do this, what will happen, to make clear at this point that as these people receive these letters, if we don't do this, we don't anticipate these upgrades being made in the next decade. And also talk about, make sure we also explain how the voting will work, so that when people look at this, they'll have the chance to know that if they don't return the ballot, it could move forward, and they need to return their ballot to make sure their vote is counted.
That's a good question. Is it based, I know we're tabling it, but it's on returned ballots?
Returned ballots.
Or number of properties?
Returned ballots.
Okay.
And just for the public, we're not putting it off. We are working on this continually, have been working on it, and we're looking at a multitude of different ways to finance this. But we've got to we've first got to know our value that we've got there. Then we can start doing more. So that's the purpose of this.
Great. Yeah, and again, we'll talk more about this as it comes up. But if you're a citizen living in Wakulla Gardens and you're interested in making sure that if you have ideas or things you'd like to see, make sure you reach out to staff or your commissioner, one of your commissioners, to help make sure your views are getting expressed as we're coming up with this idea. Thank you.
Is that in your district?
That's in Jerry's district. But you can talk to any of us, but it's officially in Commissioner Moore's district. All right, I guess we'll vote to table it. All in favor of tabling the item?
Aye.
The item has been tabled. Moving on to Commissioner agenda items. The first Commissioner agenda item up this evening is an agenda item that I pushed forward. It's talking about trying to put up some community markers, community signs in historic Hyde Park, which is a historic town in Wakulla County, located at the end of Martin Luther King Road and Highway 98.
Move to approve to direct Public Works to move forward, work with the community leaders in Hyde Park and to put up the signs.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I think we have some citizens here who would like to speak to this. Mr. Bossy Hawkins.
Thank you. I'm representing the Hyde Park Preservation Foundation, and this effort to create some signage for that community coincides with our efforts to do some things in that community. For instance, there's an old one-room schoolhouse we're trying to restore, and there's an old house that we've donated to the Wakulla Historical Society because of the age of the house. And this community is one of the older communities and has some historic connections. For instance, FSU some years ago did an archaeological dig that indicates there may have been a trading post for Native Americans right along the Wakulla River. And Amos Hargood was born in that community, and he was doing reconstruction, collective customs, postmaster, and a Wakulla County Commissioner. So there's a lot of history, and we would like to be able to, for people to be able to know where they're going when they're looking for this. Now they just pass right through, and it's impossible to know what's there. So thank you very much for considering.
Thank you. Ms. Queen McRae? Okay. She passes and will not be speaking this evening. And Ms. Jamie Hayes.
Thank you, Jamie Hayes, 40 Richard Creech in Hyde Park Community. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Alan Brock. And yes, I would like to back up what Bossy Hawkins has said. And we've come here to tell you how much we really appreciate our community, and we're all very interested in helping throughout the community, especially in the historic preservation. We've recently had some assistance through the Historical Society and genealogy, and of course historic preservation, if we can get the funds to move our one of our historic homes. So this signage would be wonderful. So not only will people be able to know when they're flying down the road where Hyde
Hyde Park is. They will also be able to take some time and possibly we'll have some tours at some point. So I thank you very much for the motion and for the signage, and thank you, Alan Brock, for bringing this forth.
Thanks, Jamie. Any other discussion from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
It passed unanimously. Congratulations. Commissioner Arts, update on board appointments.
I try to just update the board of the different committee assignments that I have, and the most active one is the Wakulla County Coalition for Youth these days. I've attached the minutes from their last 3 meetings. Again, this is just an informational item, so I move to approve. I move that we ratify these updates.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? When I was on the Coalition for Youth last cycle, last year, I was putting the minutes in the consent agenda for the Coalition of Youth, so they came every month. I don't know if you want to look at doing something like that, so that we get them, so that everyone can see them monthly. Just an idea. I'll trust you. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Thank you. Commissioner Moore, you have an agenda item this evening.
Okay, my agenda requests the board to approve to direct the county attorney to amend the ordinance number 09-17 and approve to schedule a public hearing to adopt the revised ordinance.
Second.
Wow. All right. Would you all like to hear from the citizens first?
I'd like to provide a little background before we go to citizens, but Jerry may have things he wants to say.
Well, basically, when this was at some previous time, the City of St. Marks and South Chappie were voting members of the Planning Commission, and for whatever reason, it was decided that their votes really didn't count, and it was not important to have them as voting members. And I do not agree with that. The people that I represent do not agree with that, so that's why I brought it here. They pay taxes, and they should have an equal representation for even though they're incorporated. They're still members of the community. They're members and taxpaying people of Wakulla, and they should have a vote.
Commissioner Arts?
Okay. And I appreciate you explaining why your rationale for the item, because I think it reflects some misunderstandings about why the item came to be. But I want to review a little bit of history and give you my thoughts and my suggestions. So when neighbors Gibran and Nickerson came on as our county attorneys, there were a number of things that they looked at, made recommendations, corrected ordinances. I know with code enforcement, they recommended that code enforcement have their own attorneys and so forth. And one of the things that was brought to my attention very early on, I was asked by both Heather Encinosa and Greg Stewart, the comment was made, why do we have planning commissioners, why do we have the municipalities on the planning commission? And it was brought to my attention that there's no other county in Florida that has municipalities on the planning commission. I also had some citizens who contacted me because they had some curiosity too about, well, why are South Chappie and St. Marks voting on things that they're exempted from? But we don't get to vote on theirs. So, I looked at it, considered it, and I realized, we have the municipalities, we have the unincorporated county. Each has its own county commission, its own comprehensive plan, its own planning body. And if St. Marks wants to propose something like build a skyscraper or bring some kind of new industry that would pollute air, water, whatever, we have no say in that. That if it's within their jurisdiction, they get to make those decisions. And so it doesn't seem quite fair in that way if we're doing things in parts of the unincorporated county that St. Mark's would have a vote about what happens on a comp plan amendment, for example, that doesn't affect them, or like the wetlands ordinance, which they've opted out of. So anyway, I was the one who brought this item forward because to me it seemed very logical that the Planning Commission for the unincorporated county should only have voting members who are representing the unincorporated county, the same way that St. Mark's or Sopchoppy only have voting members that represent the municipalities. Now, the alternative, and if this motion fails, if I withdraw my second and it dies for lack of a second, or if it fails to win by a vote, what I will do is make a motion that we direct the planning director, county attorney, county administrator to work with the municipalities to explore the equivalent of what Leon County and Tallahassee have, where it's truly a two-way street. It's a collaborative. Both have input. They both get to express concerns and have input into what goes on within each jurisdiction. And that, to me, is really the ideal model. And so rather than step backwards to put, the unequal, separate but equal, rather than go back to where we have the unfair one-way kind of representation, I would like to see us explore that possibility. The other thing is, I think there was a real slight that people in Sopchoppy and St. Mark's, some of them took it personally, like they were offended, like we didn't care what they thought, or we hurt their feelings, we didn't think they were significant or so. And it's interesting because I had actually checked with some of the people. I had talked to Zoe Mansfield before I even brought the item forward. She understood the logic of it. She was fine with it. But apparently not everyone was. But I think we made an effort to still involve them as non-voting members, which we didn't have to do. We kept them on as non-voting members, and which is the same status the school board has. And the reason, I guess that's a pretty nice arrangement. If we don't want to do the joint commission, the existing arrangement is fairly nice, because the bottom line is, if you're one commissioner on a board, it comes down to persuasion.
This is a motion to put them back on the planning as voting members.
Right.
Okay. I just want to be sure.
But she wanted, I think, and you wanted
seconded that motion.
She did.
Right. Right. But I'm trying to provide some background, some history, so y'all can see. Now, it's interesting to me. Okay, so power of persuasion. We have 10 people on the planning committee. 7 are voting, 3 are non-voting. Any one of those could persuade the board to go in one direction or another. They rarely have split votes. It's usually they all go one way or the other. There's occasionally a protest or whatever. So, having a vote versus having a seat that allows you to still have input and persuade, it's interesting to me that neither of those representatives have been showing up, which kind of causes me to question how interested are they really in the decisions of the Planning Commission if they aren't showing up.
If I couldn't vote, I wouldn't show up either.
Fine. If it comes... All right, anyway. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I am going to withdraw my second in just a minute. And if there's nobody else who seconds,
I'll second it if it'll save you any time.
Okay, you can second it, but then what I would like to do instead is to make a motion that we table this and let the planning director explore the joint, which is a truly collaborative or collegial kind of thing.
You got to deal with this motion that's on the floor, Mr. Chairman.
No, you're right.
I fully understand. I think
Okay.
with your goal, Commissioner Arts, what you would prefer to see happen is if we were to have the Stop Shopping St. Mark's put back in the Planning Commission as voting members, you would also like to see a representative from the county put on the planning boards of Stop Shopping and the planning board of St. Mark's.
That would be a two-way street option, yes.
Okay. Towards the end, at the moment, though, you're going to withdraw your...
Okay, because now my other thing.
Okay.
If this motion passes, then I just want you all to know, if I was in Crawfordville or Panacea, I would be pretty upset. Because right now, Sop Choppy is in my district. My alternate planning commissioner who voted at the last planning commission meeting is from Sop Choppy. But now Sop Choppy's going to have two people. And it's not like Panacea gets two, or it's not like Crawfordville gets two. So I think people are going to be kind of upset with that. But here's my proposal. If this board doesn't appreciate the logic of keeping the planning commission for the unincorporated county with only people who live in the unincorporated county, if you don't see that logic, then next meeting I'm going to bring a proposal that we do the equivalent here. If we're going to add 2 municipalities onto the planning commission for the unincorporated county, then the equivalent is to add 2 voting county commissioners from the municipality to the county commission for the unincorporated county commission. It's the same logic. Okay. And the other thing is, I won't be surprised if Panacea, Crawfordville, maybe some other places start seeking unincorporated status so they can get added to the county. Incorporated status.
Some of those communities already are.
So you did second Jerry's motion.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just laying out.
Okay.
Okay.
So now-
Because I know there are people in Sop Choppy and St. Mark's who feel like this was a slight, and it wasn't. So if we're going to add them to the planning commission, I say add them to the county commission, and that's probably going to have to go through a change of charter and a referendum, but it's the equivalent.
Not to mention we're elected and planning commissioners aren't, but that's okay.
Well, they can appoint. They can appoint.
You withdraw your second?
Yeah.
I'll be
I'm just-
asking.
Don't know if I have anything else to say.
You will have the chance of another second Ms. May to speak again.
My mouth
Right, one other thing. Because there's a reason that other counties in Florida don't have, or there are many reasons, but they don't have their municipalities on the planning commission. And one of those is because some counties have as many as 18 municipalities. So
Or more.
we're also, this is a precedent. As more counties, as more communities incorporate, we're going to be
I
expanding.
think it worked well prior to 2009, just fine, as far as I'm aware of. So I think it should have a voice in it too. As soon as you withdraw your second,
I'm withdrawing my
I'll second Jerry's motion.
Right,
Before we have citizens?
Yeah.
Okay.
'Cause while we're doing history, I want to make sure we get all the history. I voted against the motion that Ms. Arts made back when she did it in 2009, because I thought it worked fine and it had worked fine, and I believe it will continue to work fine, putting them back on. This is a unique county. We're unlike most any other county. And that's what I take a lot of pride in with our county, is that those little communities of St. Mark's and Sop Choppy are important. They
Sure
see
they are.
themselves as important.
Let's put them on the commission. Sorry, I didn't mean
No,
to
I don't
interrupt.
think they need to be on the commission, Ms. Arnold. I mean, that's don't even make sense. But anyway, this does make sense, because those people, you talk about 300 in Sop Choppy, how many is in St. Mark's?
200, 300 in St. Mark's, 500
Okay.
in Sop Choppy.
And Do they have a double say? Yeah, probably do. So what? They're good people. They care about Wakulla County. They care about what goes on in Crawfordville just as much as they care about what goes on in Sopchoppy or St. Mark's.
And they don't have a wetlands.
And it's always worked fine. And I don't see anything. It worked fine before. I don't ever remember there ever being an issue. Only thing I remember that brought this up was the fact that St. Mark's wanted to do a CRA. That made some commissioners mad up here on this board, and that's what happened. And they got their panties in a wad, and they went off and wanted to change it. That's what really happened. So that's where we are. So I want to make it clear that, somebody stood up here tonight and said that they wanted to see how I was going to vote. Well, you can go back to 2009 and see how I voted then. I'm going to vote the same again tonight. So anyway, that's what I have to say about it.
I think Commissioner Hart's raised a lot of interesting points, and I look forward to the conversation. I'd like to have citizens go first. That's okay. We do have a commissioner from Sopchoppy here, Mr. Richard Hart, and I was going to have him speak first.
I'd like to thank y'all for the opportunity to speak. My name is Richard Harden. I live at 33 Yellow Jacket Avenue, Sopchoppy, Florida. I'm also vice mayor on the city of Sopchoppy, and I'm here tonight from that in order to represent the city of Sopchoppy. First, I'd like to just say that Sopchoppy and St. Mark's are not subdivisions. They are incorporated cities. They have the same rights and powers as the county. And we felt back then, I spoke back then, just like I'll speak now against it, back in 2009, that we felt that we were involuntarily and unfairly removed from there in retaliation to votes that had been made. We'll discuss that later. But the biggest reason that I can say that we deserve a vote on there is that the planning and zoning can decide things that can happen right at our doorstep. And as a city, we should have a say in what gets done right at our doorstep. And as you, Commissioner Arch, you're our county commissioner representing us, and you should be fighting for us instead of leading the charge against us.
See, that's a misinterpretation. This isn't against the people of Sopchoppy. It's not against Sopchoppy.
We'll try not to have a conversation. We might have you. We might have you come back up. We'll talk about this more.
I know that Sopchoppy supports this, and we ask you to restore our vote on there.
I'm just curious, and I apologize for breaking protocol a little bit. What is your view on having a representative from the county on the planning board of Sopchoppy?
It's something we consider, and there's never been a time when the county commission has ever asked Sopchoppy for a seat. If it's something that the county is interested in, the city of Sopchoppy will be glad to hold a workshop with the county to discuss it, and it's something we would be open to. But there's never been a time that the county has asked or even expressed an interest to be on the planning and zoning for Sopchoppy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Judith Harris.
I'm so glad to have a chance to speak again at this very interesting meeting tonight. I'm the alternate planning commissioner that Lynn referred to from Sopchoppy, and I'm from the Sopchoppy area. I live 2 miles from the city limits, which I sort of consider the doorstep of Sopchoppy. There have been times when the city has voted on issues that have affected me, and I've gotten my panties in a wad a time or two about it. But I've come to accept that they are an incorporated part of this county, and they have their ways of doing things, and they do a good job, and it isn't mine to deal with. So I'm wearing my doorstep hat, not my alternate planning commissioner hat, when I say that I have no influence in what they do, no more influence than any other citizen who comes to their meetings and speaks and is not part of the voting process. The people in Sopchoppy, they have your ear as much as anybody else does. I don't think they need an extra mouth. You've got their views. I do like the idea of having sort of going both ways. I think that would be a really interesting and productive way to solve this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Victor Lambeau?
Vic Lambeau. Yes, there are good people in Sopchoppy and St. Mark's, and there's good people outside of those two municipalities. Yes, they are on our doorsteps, and we are on their doorsteps. What they do affects us, and what we do affects them. So it's a two-way street. To have them represented on what happens to me, I'm outside of those municipalities, but not for me to be represented through you or some representative on what they do seems kind of unfair. I think, yes, Tallahassee has a joint planning commission, or Leon County, but I've been other places where they have it, in other states where I've lived. And those joint committees can work. It takes a lot of planning to make them work. You have to have how many representatives from each, and do they vote on everything, or do they only vote on certain things? So I think what you're talking about, having equal representation both ways, is what you ought to consider, and I would urge you to have a workshop to look at this, because it's pretty complicated when you go into it, and you're not going to just be able to make a vote and do that tonight or something. Thank you.
Mr. Bob Danzy?
My name is Bob Danzy. Thank you for letting me speak. I have several things I want to say, and they're not in any order, so I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget them. So I apologize if it seems the orders are a little strange. If you remember, I think I'm right about this. The previous board, it would have taken a 4-to-1 vote to done this. They changed the 4-to-1 vote to a 3-to-2 vote so that they could take Sopchoppy and St. Mark's off. This was purely political. If you check into it, okay. I heard take politics out of it. When this got changed in 2009 or whenever it was purely politics, and it was a lot about the wetlands politics, because they felt like the votes were going to hurt them in those two cities. Yes, ma'am, that's right. They felt like the votes were going to hurt them. You and two other commissioners did this and took this. I understand, but I know where it came from. There was, are they offended? Absolutely they're offended. I think they're offended. Everybody I've talked to is offended, even one of the members of their committees here, and admitted offended, yes. So I don't think you can say that they weren't offended. I think that if this goes through, you should also add on, Commissioner Moore, the Panacea, assuming they were incorporated, would automatically be added to it. I think they would get a vote. I see, the idea that we should go into their city and the county should have some effect on them if they're going to have effect on us. The deal is they pay taxes to be in their little city, okay? They pay 2 taxes. Let them have whatever they want to do in their town. They broke away probably because of politics, and they didn't like what they had to deal with the county. If you ask me, I would imagine that would be the start of it. I feel pretty sure that's what's going on with Panacea, is some of the decisions made countywide. So they're saying, we don't want anything to do with it. Y'all are just your big government decisions, and we're getting out of it. So don't affect them. Don't press the county into the city. However, I think they should have a vote because, like somebody said, a mile outside of a city, we could go and allow something. And I get a little bit offended that what we breathe out is all of a sudden pollution, and what trees eat and grass eats as far as nitrates is all of a sudden pollution. Maybe we should take pollution away from that. Those things aren't pollutions. This is just a natural product. But we could put some of those pollution things a mile from their city, and they have no way to even let us know what they think.
Mr. Checkhast.
Seems to always be true. I follow Bob, and we always disagree. So, it seems, you're giving 800 people 2 votes on our planning commission. That's way more representation than everybody else in the county, and that just doesn't seem right. And then we have no input into what they do in their municipalities. That doesn't seem right. So, I can't, Ms. Arch's proposal seems reasonable. I cannot support the proposal of Mr. Moore. We have a good system. The people are all represented. The people that the planning commission are affecting are represented, and the cities get to run their own show. That's the way it should be. Thank you.
Well, that's all of our citizens. Further discussion from our board?
Is there any, okay, will your motion include any, you don't even know what I'm going to say and you're shaking your head?
I don't want any part of it.
You don't even know what I'm going to say.
It changes my motion. I don't want any part of it.
Okay. Please. The question's been called. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1. Okay, I'll make a note.
I move that we have the planning director, the county administrator, and the county attorney approach the municipalities about some type of a reciprocal, arrangement. Either we have a representative on their planning bodies, or we look at forming a joint kind of planning body. I would appreciate a second.
We have a motion?
Let me think about that one, Ms. Hart.
Second for discussion? Wow. Okay.
I've been up there and haven't had.
All right.
No bad.
It fails for a lack of a second. County Attorney, do you have any items this evening? Hey, Mr. I think we've addressed your item already?
Yes, you addressed my item, as well as just to let you know the audit committee will be meeting this Friday at 10 o'clock to go over our mid-year numbers. So I just wanted to bring y'all up to date. The next meeting, we will have a mid-year update.
This is the audit committee or the county auditor?
The audit committee.
And we're currently undergoing our financial audit now. Is that correct?
That is
that
right,
looking
yes.
good?
Make sure you speak into the mic, County Administrator.
Oh, he's talking to me. He just got on me earlier.
I couldn't hear what you were saying.
So far, so good. Okay. Yes.
Thank you. Discussion items by Commissioners. Commissioner Stewart has listed one. You'd like to discuss House Bill 5301 Constitution.
Well, all of you should be familiar with this now. It's the House bill that was much debated in the House and the Senate, and was finally signed into law by the governor. And I want to ask the attorney, I think we've heard now that they're going to fight it legally. I would like for us to join in that fight officially. I know Leon County and a couple other counties have. Heather, I'll let you pick it up from there.
Yeah, the Florida Association of Counties is going to be mounting a challenge to the constitutionality of that bill and the legality of it on other grounds, not just constitutional grounds. For a county of Wakulla size, they are seeking to, if you want to be a named plaintiff, a contribution of $1,000. That is one line of attack. Now, once you all get your local amounts that ACA is saying you owe for Medicaid certified, which should be done by August 1. Those will be the amounts through May 1, will be certified to you by August 1. You will then have to make a decision as a board again whether you want to challenge the amount that they are saying you owed. That would be
That's the last time we get to do that, by the way.
It'd be an administrative challenge.
This is going 7 years back, I think was the number. 12 years back. And by the way, we only are able to keep records back five years. It doesn't make any sense. We've already had our meeting with these people. I went to it. All the commissioners were invited. I went, and we were the first county that these ACA people came to tell us how it's going to work. I was blown away when they said that they were going to go back 12 years, and that's the only time we're going to get one more shot at saying we agree or don't agree. After that, going forward from here, we have no say. We're going to have to, they can milk us dry, folks, and we have no say.
Where are these charges coming from? Is this ambulance calls? Because we don't have, my understanding was if you have a hospital in your community.
You go to the hospital in Leon County, and if someone in the hospital in Leon County they say, where are you from? You say South Choppy, it comes to Wakulla County.
I asked that question. I said, if a citizen in Leon County they come down to Wakulla and they get their feelings hurt, and they go back to Tallahassee and they go to TMH and they get a heart transplant, and they say, where are you from? And they remember, well, I didn't like Wakulla. They just say, I don't like I'm from Wakulla. There is absolutely no verification of where they live going forward. Absolutely no verification. So anybody says Wakulla County, that bill's going to come to us, and we have to pay it. We have to pay it in full, and we can't challenge where they live.
They'll take it. They'll take it. We don't
if they're on Medicare, right, or Medicaid.
Yes, if they're on Medicare,
they take it.
Yes.
Or even
they just take it.
Yeah.
There's also a high, other counties have done audits, for example, of the billings that they're getting from the state for the Medicaid, found 15-20% double billings. Going forward, the state's not going to care. They're going to.
How our legislators and governor could fathom this being it's all about a couple big counties in the south of our state who absolutely botched the whole process. We've done our part. In fact, we've overpaid and we're getting some money back. We have always been on time with our billing. We've always paid. We've never been in arrears, but we get the penalty. Counties like us get penalized, and we need to fight it. $1,000 to me is worth getting involved in helping the Florida Association of Counties fight.
I would support that.
I support it also.
I just want to make sure the public understands how bad this bill is, so that they can tell their legislators.
I forwarded it to Heather, too, when I got the email and about the counties that were signing on to the lawsuit, and her response to me was, it'll cost money. So
I didn't know at that point how much, so we now know that they're asking for $1,000.
Okay.
Well, I move that we join in with VAC and pay the $1,000 to fight.
Second.
Now, this has to be unanimous vote since this wasn't an agenda item, correct?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously.
Thank you all.
Do you have any additional discussion items, Commissioner Stewart?
No.
Mr. Merritt?
Ms. Arts, I heard you earlier talking about the Wakulla Gardens study, or was that the one that you brought up that day that we voted not to fund?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I pledged I would give $100 towards that. Just let me know when I need to write a check.
Right.
Were you able to raise enough money through contributions?
I'm still raising it. I got the Wakulla Springs Lodge has agreed to provide complimentary lodging for both teams, both the advanced team and the full team. So that helps. That relieves homeowners who are offering their homes.
Good for you. And like I said, when you're ready for me to give me that.
Yeah, I'm counting you, and I'm hoping the other commissioners will each match or exceed your pledge.
I think a few people that saw me tell you I'd give you that $100, and I'll stand by it.
We need it. But we have two teams coming, and all of you have been asked to reserve June 6th. And I know, Mike, I'm sorry that you won't be able to make it, but the June 6th and 7th were the only dates that the team from the Sustainable Communities is coming.
Is June 6th the day that was chosen?
Yes. Yes. So please reserve June 6th for the whole day. And then the other team, the Wakulla Gardens team, is going to be coming probably a little later in the summer.
I wanted to follow up. Is it my turn for discussion?
Got an extra.
I was going to go, you'll be last this evening, that's okay.
I did what I said I was going to do and sat down and had a talk about the 2020 committee. I won't say it was a joyous conversation, but I relayed our concerns, I think the majority of the board's concerns anyway, that the main worry was the risk of losing the 1 cent sales tax because voters would not support a couple of them back to back. Now, John is who I talked to, John Shelton, if you don't know him. One idea that was floated around, I think everybody agrees that the composition of the 2020 committee and its goal of prioritizing projects is a good idea. Everybody pretty much agreed to that. I'd like to see us personally go ahead and push forward the referendum on the 1 cent sales tax so we'll know what we have to work with. Heather said we could do it as soon as this year if we wanted to. That's a discussion for a later time. But a big portion of that 1 cent sales tax is dedicated towards transportation, and the other 40% is dedicated to basically countywide capital projects. Now, I haven't had a chance to talk to David. I'm just talking now. I don't know what portion of that road funding is actually used for road paving, infrastructure projects, so forth. If any of it's used for equipment, I need to get with David and get all that. So I don't want to throw a kink in their machine because he may have budgeted for a new public works building a few years from now and planned on paying for it with that money if we got it. But I'd like to see us maybe use the committee that has been put together to prioritize those issues if we do get the 1 cent sales tax renewed. Because basically 60 cents of that 1 cent, in theory, is for roads. And they could be countywide roads. Now, there's also the other funding mechanism, of course, of the CRA, which I think we all are supporting moving ahead with that for Cloverville. That could be used on the intersection McDonald's and possibly the courthouse intersection, because that's always been a big push with the 2020 was improving 319. But with the CRA, you could improve not only the intersections but other areas, and then the 1 cent sales tax could be used on some of these other intersections. And because I mean, you know, Mike, I've fought this for years, spending county money on state roads, but the reality is nothing's ever going to happen unless we do that, apparently. Nothing ever major is going to happen. If you remember several years ago, the county bonded the 1 cent sales tax right after it came out and borrowed $12 million, I think, and got a bunch of roads done at one time. When this 1 cent sales tax if it gets renewed, that slate is not quite claimed. You know, there's a couple more years of payments, but that'll be a bonding capability out 10 years, where if a big project came up that DOT would fund 50%, we could bond that and accomplish, I think, what they're trying to do, but using the 1 cent sales tax, which we really can't afford to lose the other components which pay for Parks and Rec, the library, capital equipment for the Sheriff's Department, for the Advocacy Department. So I just want to, that was what came out of the discussion. I think.
So what are your next steps that you're suggesting, in your opinion, should happen?
Well, question number one, do you guys think we should try to go ahead and put the referendum on the November ballot for extending the 1 cent sales tax?
I don't.
You don't need to give an answer now.
I don't think that we've organized enough of an active campaign to pass the 1 cent sales tax.
Plus, in this economy and with some of the recent assessments and whatever, I just think its prospects for passing would be better 2
That's
years from
perfectly
now.
fine. That's all I was going to ask. That's fine. And then the other thing I was going to say is this 2020 committee that is formed, let them, if not all the money, but have kind of what they were going to do with the half-cent sales tax, is prioritize the projects for that money from the 1 cent sales tax. Again, I haven't talked to David, so I don't know what he has committed, but if it's strictly going to pave roads, you know, we made the matrix up years ago just to try to have some idea of how to prioritize them. And
well, I think that's a good idea, but remember now that there's a 1 cent sales tax committee already in place that has to review that. They're supposed to do it every year, I think, made up of the clerk and some others who are supposed to review the expenditures of it with we're supposed to, come to us and reallocate it.
That's an allocation, yes, but that 1 cent committee doesn't say, all right, that 60 cents of every dollar you're using for roads, here's what you want, we think you should spend them on. The allocation, I agree with you.
I think that's a good idea to put that committee to work doing that, to suggest to us what that should be spent on. That's what you're saying, is a
Basically,
suggestion to us.
Well, I think it maybe should be a little bit more than a suggestion, because that takes the politics out of it. We need to update the infrastructure element of the comp plan, too. That's another thing they can do. Just think about it. I'm not asking for anybody making you sick.
Are you taking any stance right now on the current 2020 initiative that the citizens are bringing forward?
Yes, I am taking a stance on it. I think that this November ballot, we should not have that on the November ballot.
Okay.
That's my stance.
Okay.
And I told John that. Very happy.
And I thought we talked about that the other night, that we pretty much all agreed that.
I told him Allen was, whichever one had the most citizen support, so one you would support.
I'll reiterate, we talked about, last Thursday night we had a workshop about Children's Services Council. I continue to say that I think you can have both on the ballot. I don't think you should get rid of the 2020 and put the Children's Services Council on there if there's no citizens behind the Children's Council, which is, right now, currently is how it exists. Okay. I think that's short-sighted.
And I'll admit, I should have expressed my concerns earlier, but my big concern is that even if this half-cent passes or fails, we don't have it right now, that the 1 cent sales tax, if it doesn't pass, we're in a jam. And we could always do this half-cent after the referendum on the 1 cent sales tax. I wouldn't have any problem with that, because then it's not going to influence it.
Well, and what I'm going to reiterate again is, right now, my understanding is you have the half-cent sales tax, which is being pushed forward by a citizens committee. And we've said that the citizens committee is going to take this and put it on the ballot, that they can have that. We'll support it. We'll put it on the ballot for the citizens committee. It then becomes the citizens committee's responsibility to advertise for it, promote it, come up with the priorities for it. Like, this has been their project. The difference between that and the 1 cent sales tax, which we're talking about, which is up for renewal in 2014, that would be, I anticipate that being something that the current board, if it decides to move forward with it, will be behind, and we won't be able to use taxpayers' resources to promote, but I anticipate us being the ones leading that, working out with our other constitutionals who have benefited for it, and doing an education campaign promoting what that has done and how that has worked. I anticipate as we get closer to it that, for instance, we should probably put a sign up at Old Shell Point Road, say, paid for by your 1 cent sales tax, so people know what's been done with it. So that when people go, oh, that was a good thing, or that was a bad thing, depending on where you are, but they'll know that it was paid for by that 1 cent sales tax.
We used to do that.
Yeah, we still, the front signs are probably still hanging around.
Yeah.
I understand your position, but my personal thoughts are, if the citizen says, all right, this half-cent sales tax is going to go for countywide projects and for road improvements, and then a year later there's another 1 cent sales tax that's an extension and go to countywide projects and road improvements, it's not going to pass. That's my position. I may be wrong, but that's it.
I tend to agree with you. Basically, the citizens don't want another tax. I think anything you put before the voters right now will probably fail. The 1 cent, whenever it comes up, it's just the extension. It doesn't require any more money. It's just an extension of what's already there. But if you put something before the citizens and you say, well, I'm going to just give them the right to make the choice. Well, you've put a choice out there and 51% make the choice. You've just raised taxes on 49%. So I'm not going to be in favor of...
I would, if the 1 cent sales tax had another 8 or 10 years left on it, I wouldn't have a problem with this, to be honest with you.
I agree with you.
Timing issue for me is everything. We don't have this tax now. It'd be great if the county had this money. I'm not saying it'd be great if the county had the tax. Don't quote me on that. But it would be great if we had another funding source to improve 319. It would be tragic if we didn't have the 1 cent sales tax and couldn't pay for the library and couldn't pay for ambulances.
And let me make sure I understand. Commissioner Moore and Commissioner Merritt, you're both saying that no matter what happens, you're not going to support the half-cent sales tax ending up on the ballot for this fall.
No, I'm not.
Correct. Okay. And I think Commissioner Stewart is wanting to see only, if a tax moves forward to the ballot this fall, you don't want to see more than one ballot, one tax on the ballot this fall.
Well, I said it the other night, I'm fearful for the same reason Randy just said, that if we put this 2020 on there, I'm afraid it's going to fail, and then we're going to cause the other one to fail as well, and we're not going to have a tax to work with at all, even this extended tax. That's what I'm fearful of. I love the idea of this, what they want to do with the money. I just...
The 2020 committee has a meeting tomorrow at 4 o'clock in the library. I would encourage y'all, if you have the ability to go and sort of talk with them, because again, you have a group of citizens who put a year of volunteerism in, and to help move this idea forward. So
I think it's a good thing. Mike, you said you were worried that it failed. I think I'd be more worried that if it passed, then the next one will come up and say, I just voted for that. A half cent. I'm not voting for another 1 cent. That's how most people are going to look at it. Again, if the 1 cent had plenty of legs in front of it, I'd have no problem with this.
Okay, I just want to be clear on how much support there is for moving forward with the Children's Services one, because it sounded like there was a lot of support for it, and I've been arranging meetings with the Wakulla County Coalition for Youth, the Rec Board, and the Community Center Advisory Council.
I'm in support of that because there is no overlap between that and another program that we're talking about. That's totally different than roads.
But that's still a tax. We're going to...
It would still be a tax voted on by the people of Wakulla County.
People, Jerry. That's the difference I have.
Okay, well, even then, I'm not...
Moore will probably still vote against it.
Okay, even then, you get 51% that vote for it, you got 49% that just had tax added that they didn't want. And
well, that's democracy.
Yeah.
That is democracy, and that's correct, but I won't vote for that.
Okay.
And just for the record, my position was basically the same as Alan's at our last meeting.
Which
in
was?
That I didn't feel uncomfortable having the two on the ballot, but I do share your concerns about what might happen to the 1 cent. I just feel like those concerns should have been expressed earlier before we let people
and I'll take it
get this
personal
far.
responsibility to John, which it doesn't mean anything, but you're right. I mean, I should have said something that, hey, I don't really like this because it could jeopardize our 1 cent, but you just took a little thought.
Yeah,
I'll take the heat for it. That's my job. That's fine.
Again, the 2020 committee still exists and will be moving forward. I don't know, they may choose to dissolve. But I would encourage everybody to sort of reach out to people and try and figure out, because again, I just think it's an awkward situation that they've been placed in.
I agree.
Bringing up, are you finished, sir? Brings up, I was going to say, there's at least one opening on the 2020 committee that needs to be filled at some point in the near future. And there may be 2 other vacancies opening up because of a lack of attendance. I'm not going to prioritize that at tonight's meeting to fill those 3 openings. I forgot to I got this notice late last week and didn't put an item in. But as it moves forward, if the 2020 committee maybe bring up at the next meeting suggestions for who to fill these spots, if there's spots that are open. I also want to touch on the our last item that we discussed that Commissioner Moore brought up. I was going to talk on it, but the question was called. 2 years ago, I was with Commissioner Stewart and voted against taking Sopchoppy and St. Mark's off the planning and zoning board. This is an issue. It's one of these issues. I think the Sopchoppy and St. Mark's have done a great job and served the people of Wakulla County for a long time, and I think they've done a great job on our board. I think that if a compromise can be reached, that Sopchoppy will have a representative from the county, and St. Mark's will have a representative from the county, and maybe the question's never been asked. That's what the Commissioner Hardin suggested, that it's never been asked, so that everybody feels that you have that there's equal representation. I thought that was a good idea to help us move forward.
I don't think it's our position to push that upon them. Let them.
I think that you at least it'd have to be our position to at least ask, to say we think.
Planning board in Sopchoppy, just out of curiosity.
There's a planning board in both cities.
Separate from the city commissioners? Or does the city commissioner sit as the planning?
I think the commission sits as the planning board.
Oh, does the commission sit as the planning board?
Let's take an example, all right, since we're just under discussion.
Yeah, I don't know.
There was a big thing about drinking beer or whatever in the Sopchoppy city limits.
Mm-hmm.
Are we sure we want to insert ourselves or something like that?
Well, this is where you get in the tricky look at, and I'm sorry, I don't know that we're going to we don't allow citizen input during this, so I don't know how to let you have a chance to speak. It's a tricky way. I don't know that I'll end up supporting this again when it comes back up. It becomes the issue, and it's not as an insult to Sop Choppy or St. Mark's. And I did vote to put it on the public hearing. I don't have a problem having something move forward as a public hearing, and I'll do more outreach on it and talk to people, because I have good friends who I know were offended, who I had no reason, who it was not the reason when we took them off. But it does. The questions for me are, do we keep adding people as cities incorporate? Because I do anticipate in the not-so-distant future Panacea becoming an incorporated city. I think that's going to happen in the foreseeable near future. I don't know if Crawfordville will ever incorporate.
Really? Somebody's talking about incorporating Panacea?
Yeah. I don't know that Crawford will ever incorporate, but then you're going to add in you just start adding positions to your planning and zoning board. As it is, it's right now, I will say, with the 5 board members, the way it's set up right now, you do have equal representation for the whole community. I don't know. It's a very tricky wicket, and it weighs heavy on me. So I just wanted to put that conversation out there as we were talking about it, to let y'all know what I'm weighing. And that's Commissioner Moore. Okay.
A citizen mentioned the good people of Panacea and Sop Choppy. I would differ with that, in that the word should have been the great people of Panacea and Sop Choppy. Mr. Langsford mentioned the fire trucks. I probably had about 6 calls on the fire trucks. It seems like that if we had had a speed device out there, that one fire truck might have been doing 162. They were talking about wiping out the community. And I have mentioned this to David before. The people that I represent, the people that I talk to, they don't want to, especially they don't want to see the fire truck after the ambulance has already picked up the body and gone. I was at a street one day, and a motorcycle touched the back of another car, and we had 16 ambulances and 9 fire trucks show up because that fellow fell off a motorcycle. That's somehow we've got to save our money and save our gas and quit making those trips.
Well, we're working on that.
I'm sure you are.
But understand, that's one trip that happened like that out of thousands we make every month that we're responding correctly, and it happens. But we are working on that with the sheriff's office. In fact, they'll
very good. I'm sure you are.
We're consolidating, starting to lump off. But there was that particular day that happened. We were actually out of ambulances in the county after that, and we were responding from one call to the next. And there was 2 or 3 things going on, or quite a few things going on at the same time. But I apologize.
Don't do that. It was only doing 162.
Well, he was in a hurry trying to get there.
He passed the ambulance going the other way.
And again, it's a liability issue, but we've talked about that before. You know how litigious a lot of people are in the community, and it costs us more money. It saves us money by erring on the side of caution than if they sue us because we didn't have a fire truck show up, and then we have to pay them a settlement. And we're trying to do everything we can to avoid future settlements.
Well, we do the best we can.
Right, no, and I know. I'm just talking about it is a cost savings measure that we send the redundancy. The redundancy is cost savings. Commissioner Arts?
Yeah, I just wanted to find out what we were doing about the parking on the Ochlockonee Bay Bike Trail. Were they... Remember that Sheriff Crum...
Something we brought up to the engineers, and we're waiting for a resolution from them, from McKinley Horn.
Okay, and I just wanted to throw out one suggestion, is that you might consider putting bollards in that allow bikes to go through, but not cars. Anyway.
We suggested that, and what's that? Right, we suggested that very thing, and that's hopefully what will come out of all.
One more thing, since we're getting close to this bike trail being done, I want to keep in everybody's mind, remember I wanted to try to open that road back up that goes back on those canals on the other side of the boat ramp. I mean, the trail ends right there. People could go right over there and go fishing off the shore with people going on a boat. And
it's a great place for kayaks to launch.
I don't know what to do to get the ball rolling on that. I mean, I know it's going to take money.
Also, we're going to start maintaining the bike trail as well. We're going to put a person on it once a week on the weekends to start blowing it off. We're going to probably come to the commission next month or next year with look about getting a official blower / sweeping machine, once the bike trail is completely finished.
One at Public Works office sitting out back.
As we
Cleve has already said he's gonna run it.
as we look at doing that, and we look at the parking issues out there, we might want to. I know we're setting up some places to place money for the ramps.
Yes.
We might set up one just for donations for the bike trail, not for a set fee, but so that people. You'll be surprised. I think there'll be people who say help keep. Every time I go to Wakulla Springs, I see the box of money there, and people throw lots of money into the Wakulla Springs to help keep the springs.
Throw it into the springs?
Throw into the box inside
On the
hotel.
boats.
But to help raise the money. I'm just suggesting it might be worthwhile, especially if we're going to start having reoccurring costs.
Yeah.
It might be worthwhile to
We're
have.
gonna have ongoing costs here, which is fine, because it's a great amenity.
It is. It's great. I keep hearing awesome things about it. I want to commend everybody who's working on that.
Yeah.
Commissioner Arts, did you have any other items?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Hearing no further discussion, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much. Have a great evening.
And I need to disclose to you young lady, since you're our attorney, that today